Goodbye, England's rose. May you ever grow in our hearts. You are the grace that placed yourselves where lives were torn apart. You called out to our country and you whispered to those in pain. Now you belong to heaven and the stars spell out your name. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. Your candles burned out long before your legend ever will. Loneliness we've lost, those empty days without.
Good evening, everybody. As we continue to celebrate women of history, I chose Diana Spencer, Lady Di, Princess Diana, tonight because I think it's important that we remember that they're not just princesses, they're also moms. In particular, Diana, mother of William and Harry, and with the news of Kate Middleton being diagnosed with cancer, I think it's important to acknowledge that. Also, a little bio on her. Diana, born July 1st, 1961, daughter of Edward John Spencer and Frances Ruth Burke Roche. As a child, she was shy but developed a love of music and dance. She had an aristocratic upbringing, becoming Lady Di after her father inherited the title of Earl of Spencer in 1975. It's actually believed that she played with Prince Andrew and Prince Edward as a child. In 1977, she became acquainted with Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne. The princess was a fashion and glamour icon, but she also became known, actually, I should go back. When they were married, July 29th, 1981, if you're a Gen Xer, you remember this. It was dubbed the wedding of the century. An estimated 750 million viewers tuned in all over the world to watch the ceremony on TV. The princess was a fashion glamour icon, but she also became known for her worldwide philanthropic efforts. She championed causes including homelessness, disabilities, HIV/AIDS, the welfare of children, and the opposition to the use of landmines. In fact, during the final month of her life, she was doing charity work, visiting victims of landmines in Bosnia. Her personal life continued to be in the public spotlight, including her romance with Egyptian film producer Dodi El Fayed. The couple was visiting Paris on the night of August 31st, 1997, when their car was pursued by the paparazzi, resulting in a high-speed crash. El Fayed and the driver, who was found to have had high levels of alcohol in his system, were both killed, and Princess Diana died later from her injuries. She was 36. Again, we continue to honor. Good evening, my brother.
Good evening. How are you?
I am very well. I'm swapping.
Where's my background?
And I'm swapping this as well. Stand by. All right. There we go.
Let's see if this works.
Before we get too deep tonight, first of all, happy Monday. Hope you're well. Obviously, with lots of news today regarding various civil judgments and cases being scheduled and the whole nine yards, I had reached out to someone who I respect tremendously on this app, Legal Dad, and I saw that he requested, and I'm going to bring him up because I want to help him. I want to have him help us break down a few things. So we're going. I mentioned to him, and hey, brother, thank you for joining. We really appreciate that. Really appreciate
Happy to be here.
I don't know if you guys have ever met Anthony, Legal Dad, Anthony. So the reason I asked you to join us tonight, and everybody, please tap and share the live. I'd really appreciate that. So we have a decision today, or a sort of a surprise ruling by the appellate court in New York to kind of lower the bond from 464 down to 175. But that's not really the reason I wanted to bring you up. A lot of people still think that there was no crime committed in that case, that there's no victim in this case, and I've been trying to explain that this is, textbook fraud. In reading through the case, there's things that I saw about conservation easements and things along those lines, and about how the properties got overinflated for loans and underinflated for tax purposes. If that's sort of the 100,000 foot perspective, would you agree? My assessment there, more or less.
Yep.
Okay. Would you mind unpacking that a little bit more for us so that the audience can truly understand what the crimes are as opposed to hearing it from me? First of all, your background, I believe you are a commercial real estate lawyer. Is that correct?
Yep. That is
Okay.
correct.
So we've gone to the source, so to speak. When you're not fighting the FAA, you are practicing commercial real estate law.
I'm doing both.
Okay. So I guess it's probably easiest to speak as much in layman's terms as possible, but I think the nuance is important here.
Well, first of all, keep in mind it's not a criminal case, right? It's a
Correct.
civil case. So he's not being charged criminally, he's being charged civilly. Think the OJ case.
Okay.
Somebody who was acquitted of a criminal charge and then found liable for exactly the same thing in a civil matter. And now he basically works for the Goldmans, right?
Right.
OJ does.
Right.
This was under a civil statute. Trump has said it's never been used before. That's incorrect. In fact, it was used against him before. And Trump University paid $25 million in a settlement to New York under the same statute. So that's clearly not true. The notion of there not being a victim, well, that's, first of all, irrelevant, and second of all, wrong. I mean, it's pretty clear when you read Judge Engoron's order that banks loaned him money at lower rates because these were recourse loans. And a recourse loan means you have a guarantor on the hook in case the lender doesn't pay. So there are at least a couple of examples in the opinion that say he went to Deutsche Bank and asked for loans from two different divisions of the bank. One of them, it would have been a non-recourse loan, meaning that nobody was directly on the hook. There was no warm body behind the company that owed this loan back.
Okay.
And that would have been a one interest rate, but it would have been a much lower interest rate and was a much lower interest rate when Trump agreed to sign a guarantee based on financial statements of financial condition that were fraudulent. And so he saved a buttload of money by falsifying information to the lender to get a lower interest rate. And that's what Judge Engoron said, you've got to pay that back.
Gotcha.
And he does the calculations and said, if it were at this interest rate, it would have been this much interest, but it was at this lower rate because you lied, and that's how much interest you saved. Pay up.
So a lot of the argument and a lot of the pushback that we've heard has been, well, he would have gotten an appraisal. Why didn't the bank request an appraisal, or why was the tax adjuster not involved? So I think there was tax debate over the tax assessment or the tax appraisal said 28 million for Mar-a-Lago, and then I guess his lawyers petitioned that to go lower. But yet when he tried to get the loan, the FSC, or the SFC, right, Statement of Financial Condition, was that the property was listed at like 791 million. So those two things can't be true. So I guess there doesn't need to be an appraisal necessarily. The bank has to then take the Statement of Financial Condition at its word, so to speak.
Well, look at what you're appraising. The bank will always appraise the collateral.
Okay.
So if you are borrowing money to buy a house, the bank will always appraise the house, or nearly always appraise the house. In this case, it was several different commercial properties.
Okay.
So they'll always appraise that. But then as a condition to doing these loans as non-recourse, as recourse, as a recourse loan, where you have a warm body on the hook,
Okay.
right? Donald Trump is on the hook as a guarantor. As a condition to doing it that way, he was required to have a certain net worth. And that net worth in one of the loans in the Engoron order was $2.5 billion. Well, how do you get there? Well, you get a statement of financial condition that says, I have all this other property. I have cash, I have stock, I have other real estate that I either own myself or I own part of it through other entities. The bank does not go and appraise all those other properties. There could be dozens of them, appraisals are expensive. So you don't go do dozens of appraisals to come up with support for his self reported net worth of $2.5 billion. If you see something that's crazy, then yeah, maybe you say something, you look into it further. But you're really only appraising the collateral property, the property that's actually encumbered with a mortgage or a deed of trust for the loan. So looking at assessor's values, that's really irrelevant. Assessor's values are wildly different than market values anyway. They're usually significantly lower.
Commercial property specifically.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
even
Right.
your own, even if you own a house, look at the assessed value of your house versus what you could actually sell it for.
Got
The
it.
assessed value is almost always significantly lower.
Let's hope.
So they're not going to look at that. But they don't do these things. And there's actually an interesting footnote in the opinion, or in the order and decision by Ingoran, and he's talking about one of the Deutsche Bank loans. It's footnote number 7 on page 10, and it says, upon discovering that Trump Tower had recently been refinanced, but not by Deutsche Bank, the financing entity, whoever did the loan, had commissioned an appraisal that was made available to Deutsche Bank. So Deutsche Bank wasn't doing its own appraisal of Trump Tower, but they got a hold of one because whoever actually did the loan gave it to them. Upon realizing that the independent appraised value was less than the number reported by the client, Trump, the credit risk management team confirmed that they were adjusting the property value to reflect the recent appraisal and new debt. So Deutsche Bank did get some information that one of the property's values was wrong, but they didn't do their own appraisal. They got somebody else's appraisal who had just done it. I don't know how they got it, but they did. And they made an adjustment.
Okay. So, end of the day, it's textbook fraud because of the statements of financial condition when you're making. So, the conservation easement, I was reading about that. That had something to do with golf course properties about not wanting to develop. So, that all part of the same. So, the conservation easement was an attempt to get a tax break.
The conservation easement is on Mar-a-Lago.
Okay.
And he didn't, whoever was valuing the property was unaware of the conservation easement.
By the way, I was in a MAGA Live last week and they referred to it as a conversation easement, which I thought was interesting.
I think that's what you have here from 6 to 9 Eastern time, Monday through Friday.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for that PR. Appreciate that.
No, so conservation easement basically treats it as a historical property, more or less. And so he can't subdivide that land, meaning he can't take a large parcel and make it into several smaller parcels. Okay. He can't add any buildings. He can't do major renovations. He can't do interior reservations. And it's basically commercial property, not residential. So when he says, well, other houses in the area sold for much more money, well, that's great. They're not restricted the way yours is.
Got it.
Those can be residences. Those could be torn down and something new built. You could take a 5-acre parcel and turn it into 5 1-acre parcels, which could increase the value. He can't do any of that. And so the value of it is significantly lower than it would be if it were simply a residential parcel. And the notion that it's worth $1.5 billion, whatever it is ridiculous.
So that's part of the tax fraud scheme, more or less, because you're looking to get a tax break from it being declared as a conservation easement?
He's definitely paying less in taxes, which is fine. There's no problem in him doing that. He actually recorded a document that said it's restricted for this conservation easement and he's paying lower taxes. But you can't then turn around and say that you should value it based on it not having that easement.
Okay. That
doesn't make any sense. I mean, imagine if your house, you said you can never make a single repair to your house. And so ultimately it's just going to fall apart and it's not going to be worth as much money.
Right.
Right. So it's not quite that extreme, but he can't do nearly as much to Mar-a-Lago as other people can do to their property. So it's simply not worth as much.
Okay.
It's certainly still worth money. And by the way, Judge Ingoran never said it's worth $18 million. He noted what the assessed values were over a period of time. And of course, Trump picked the one that's from like 15 years ago.
Right. That's another claim that's been spinning around that the judge made that claim,
so
criticizing the judge for not being an appraiser. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Right. Nowhere in the order, in the decision, does he say that Mar-a-Lago was worth $18 million.
Okay.
That's not in there.
So I've read through Judge Engeron's opinion, and it seems, I mean, there's some legalese in there, but it's not that difficult to understand. And I don't know from your perspective, obviously, for clarification purposes, what happened today was the bond, correct me if I'm wrong on this, legal dad, but the bond was lowered to 175, although no transparency. We don't necessarily know why. There's rumors that it might be the appeals court was worried about the solvency of the Trump org not being able to pay their employees, not being able to pay their creditors. Who knows? It's just another example of white rich men getting privilege in our country in the legal system, but that's a whole other conversation. Anywho, the 175 was so that um, the AG could not start seizing property. Is that correct?
That's correct. So
Okay.
the bond was going to be 500 million plus or minus because of
Right.
interest and whatever else. And I haven't seen the opinion from the Court of Appeals in New York, so I don't know what they said other
There's nothing in
than,
it. It's really just the number. That's what
is that
the
it? Okay,
reporting
so I
was
don't know the
talking about
reasoning.
today. Yeah, no
Yeah, I don't
reason
know the
whatsoever.
reasoning.
Yeah.
But
Um,
the
Go ahead.
bond he has to put up isn't so that he's allowed to appeal. It's so that Letitia James can't start executing on the judgment and taking all of his stuff. So if he puts up a $175 million bond or that amount in cash within the next 10 days, so by what, April 4th or whatever, towards the end of next week, then Letitia James can't go after his stuff. Even if he doesn't put it up, he could still appeal. And he is appealing, but
Right.
she could start taking his stuff.
So then, the decision or the opinion from Judge Engoron seems pretty solid. So I know you're not a prognosticator, but obviously an appeal they may now. Does the appeals court, in your experience, do they see him favorably? So then, because he's going back to the same appeals court on the appeal that just lowered his bond burden down to 175. You see where I'm going with this? Like,
Yeah.
do they seem sympathetic?
No,
Okay.
I don't think that telegraphs what they're going to do at all.
Okay.
They could certainly say they can certainly lower the amount. I mean, the appeals court can do whatever they want.
Sure.
I don't think they could make it more, but they could reduce it. They could say the interest is less, or you don't have to pay interest, or we're cutting it in half, or we're making it zero, or you have to go back and have more proceedings. There's a bunch of things they can do. But them saying the bond is 175 has zero to do with what they're going to do
Got it.
when they actually hear the case.
And then what? So this isn't necessarily a civil penalty because I think civil penalty. I think you go 15 miles over the speed limit and you get a $75 ticket. It's written on the ticket. This is in disgorgement, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just math, more or less.
This disgorgement is you got something you shouldn't have gotten, and we're taking it from you. So, yeah, it's different. It's not punitive damages. It's, the state can do that. They can take ill-gotten gains, essentially.
Okay.
And so when you read through Ngoran's opinion, and by the way, I say it that way because somebody from New York who's a lawyer told me that's how he says it.
And
So
Goron. Yeah.
I don't know
Was
if the
it
guy's
Dave
right
the
or
Angry
not.
Lawyer?
That,
Probably Dave the Angry Lawyer, probably.
that's how I've been saying it. So,
Me
and
too.
Goran went through all this math. And he
Okay.
said, for example, in the Deutsche Bank one, and this was more than one loan, where he went to two different parts of the bank and said, hey, what would it be for non-recourse, meaning I'm not on the hook, versus recourse, where I am on the hook, and he got a lower interest rate? He did the math and he said, well, one of the experts did the math who testified and said he saved $17.5 million because he lied and he got a lower interest rate. And Ngoran saying, okay, hand it over. And he did that through multiple different properties, saying, here's how much you saved. Didn't pay the bank because you lied to them. Pay up.
Okay. One thing I noticed too that I wrote it down here. So the compliance monitor and the independent monitor, basically like corporate babysitters, are
Yep.
to remain in place
Yeah,
during the appeal.
that's my understanding.
Okay.
But he can still have the other stuff got tossed. So he can, or not tossed, stayed.
Right.
So they're not in effect. So he can borrow money from New York institutions, which Ngoran said he couldn't do. He can be involved in the companies, which Ngoran said he couldn't do for 3 years. Eric and the other guy, Donnie Jr., I guess, can be
Yeah.
involved. So everything but those independent monitors are on hold.
Okay. And then my last question, I'm not sure if Anthony does. When you're attempting to secure a bond, now, typically speaking, is there a paper trail? Meaning that is it transparent so that the bank knows where the money's coming from? Because we've heard rumblings over the weekend about foreign monies, and Trump has not denied that he would take foreign money. And Alina Habba was very sort of cagey cagey in her attempts to answer questions. So is it typically transparent?
What I think they would do if the bonding company is they would say, okay, you want a $150 million bond. I need at least that much in a liquid account, and then I'll take a security interest in that account. And so, for example, assume he has $150 million in a Wells Fargo savings account or whatever. They would actually, the issuer of the bond would actually enter into a control agreement with Wells Fargo saying, you're not doing anything with that money unless we say you can.
Okay.
So they basically have a security interest, a perfected interest in that, and he wouldn't be able to do anything with it. It would essentially be a blocked account.
Okay.
So the 150 is there in case Trump loses and then has to pay the judgment, and he doesn't pay 150 of it, and the state comes and says, hey, surety, bond guy, hand over the 150. And so bond guy does, and then he goes to Wells Fargo and says, hand over the 150, and Wells Fargo hands it over.
Got it.
So it's
Got it.
unlikely you get there because Trump just takes the 150 from the Wells Fargo account and pays it.
Right.
But there's
Okay.
also a fee, and that fee is anywhere from, say, 1 to 15% of the bond amount. So at $150 million, that's, $1.5 million to, $25 million maybe. It's probably going to be on much lower end than the higher end, especially if it's collateralized with cash.
Got it.
So, because the risk is a lot lower, but he's still going to be paying $1.5 million at least, I would think, just for the privilege of getting the bond, and that money's gone.
Right.
That's a fee
Cost of doing business, so to
to
speak.
the surety. A surety is just somebody who agrees to be on the hook for somebody else's obligation.
Got it.
So if I agree to pay, like I'm a co-signer on a loan or something, I'm essentially a surety. I'm saying if facts still matters doesn't pay, I will.
Shit.
I'm the surety.
Damn it. Thanks for
I'm not
backing
going
me
to
up,
be your
bro.
surety facts.
Appreciate that, buddy. Anthony, do you have any questions for Legal Dad?
No, I just want to thank him for coming up and validating all the points that we've discussed. And of course, people are down in the comments chirping because they don't understand that this type of fraud is convicted on a daily basis. And as someone who's spent the last 26 years in finance, specifically banking and payments, we see this all the time. Like I ran operations divisions where the people would put the holds on these accounts because of a bond, because of a lien, right? And those accounts are locked down. And with those tri-party agreements, one party can't do any other thing without the other two parties going, okay, one of those parties is the bank, right?
Right.
So,
And
so
that's
this
how you
money
perfect. Right.
right.
That's how you perfect a security interest in the account, right? Is to have an account control agreement. And that's in the Uniform Commercial Code. That's how you do it. And with that agreement, in the Wells Fargo example, they're not doing squat with that money. Nobody's getting that money.
No. And what's awesome about the premium is the more bonds he gets, the higher the premium's going to be. So because he becomes then a risk, right? That time and money risk ratio that they run through, right? Because he may, even though the bond has been lowered, right? There's still a credit process that happens. There's still a guy like me who loves doing math for a living who says, it's cash, but if we add up all the other stuff he has, who else is trying to claw that cash back or put a lien on it, right? Because here's the thing, and Legal Dad's probably seen this, the IRS supersedes state liens and supersedes some bonds. So if the IRS wants somebody's cash, they're going to come and put a lien on top of that. And then your tri-party agreement basically dissolves because Uncle Sam's like, no, actually, this is mine. And there's no recourse for that. So this whole world is really super fascinating. And I didn't know, Legal Dad, that you did this. So not only do I love planes and want to learn how to fly, but I also love the aspect of what you do because it involves so many logic puzzle pieces, right? And I don't think people understand the complexities of the commercial real estate space and all of the bank stuff that goes behind it, right? Because this shit's not easy,
Yeah, I see it from the borrower and the lender side. So I represent plenty of lenders documenting loans. So I'll see the credit approvals, the 35-page credit write-up that
Yeah.
talks about all the different stuff, but you only ever see one appraisal.
Hmm.
Right.
And
Right. Which makes you wonder why the appraisal doesn't look like the underwriting process, because it sure shit shouldn't be as short as it is, right? Underwriters spend hundreds of hours writing up this credit approval doc, and then an appraiser comes and it's like some dude with a clipboard. He's all, yeah, that's a roof. Looks
well,
like there's some walls. Looks like, I mean, it's not that simple.
Stove.
I know, but
Sure.
it's not like they're doing complex calculations like the underwriters are doing, right?
right.
There is a process, right? But it's to me, I always thought it was ironic how interpretive an appraiser can be versus another appraiser. But underwriters have all these codes that they have to follow, right? And
Right.
bank rules that they have to follow.
Yeah. And
So that's
committees to
why I
answer
always
too.
found it interesting that Trump's properties were supposedly worth so much money. And I'm like, not if you can't do anything with it. If there's no expansion on a piece of property, its inherent values, it's actually pretty low.
We don't want to keep
Right.
you much longer, friend. I appreciate
Yeah,
you
sorry.
joining, but that's okay. Is there anything else that we should know that perhaps we haven't touched on that you hear often as a bit of misinformation or
Well, the
factual
biggest thing
inaccuracies?
is that banks, do all this due diligence to support the creditor, the guarantor's net worth, and they do a lot, but they do not appraise all these other properties. So
Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing. But also the joke, Anthony, you know this joke about MAI appraisers. That's MAI is what they call themselves. And MAI means made as instructed. So you basically tell the appraiser what value you need, and they'll find it for you. So
Yep.
they're sometimes of dubious value, but the best thing is that footnote. I think footnote 7 from his order is very enlightening. That Deutsche Bank was not appraising other properties, but they happened to get their hands on an appraisal, and guess what? It showed that the property was worth less than what Trump was saying. So
Yeah.
that one footnote can be read multiple different ways, but when you really look into it, it explains a whole lot.
Footnote 7. I made the note.
Footnote 7.
Got it. Legal Dad, thank you, brother. Really, really appreciate you
Anytime.
jumping on short
Have
short
fun,
notice.
guys.
I really appreciate it, friend. You have a good night. Thanks
Thank
for
you so
joining.
much.
We
Talk to you
appreciate
later.
you.
Have a good
Later,
one.
bud. You got it. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So I
Well,
wanted to do that. I reached out to Legal Dad yesterday. For those of you who don't follow Legal Dad, please do. He's on
hell yeah.
regularly with Barrister and Muzzy and Manda. But he specializes in commercial real estate, and I just wanted to have that conversation because trying to again push back on some misinformation. So there we are. Back to regular programming. Everybody, please, if you wouldn't mind liking and sharing the live, please tap, tap, tap. There is a gift goal this evening. We are at 52 subscribers. Thank you to everybody. I just learned this. If you're a subscriber, if you are a subscriber, you get special like emoticons in the comment section. There's like a little, when you want to comment in the live, there's like a little thing that's in the comment box and you get a list of things that are like cool. And I've seen those things in other people's lives, but I've never seen anybody do it in ours. So anyway, looking to try to get to 60 subscribers this evening. I'll thank you in advance. There's numerous links in the link tree in my bio. Some pay options are here. Anthony's got some behind him as well. And there's merch in the merch store. And there's a couple of price breaks on some items that are in there. And at some point this evening, we might even talk about a new logo for a particular thing that we've been talking about for a little while that you haven't even seen yet, sir. So we'll see how that goes this evening. All right. So on that topic, as we know, the ruling changed, as Legal Dad just kind of took us through. The bond does not mean the case has been lowered to 175. It's just so Letitia James can't go put the big padlock on Mar-a-Lago or the big padlock on Trump Tower. Yet, exactly. The other news today, so that's a win, I think, and I mentioned this earlier a bit facetiously, but it's reality. Donald Trump is above the law, just like every other rich white person in America. Our judicial system favors the white elite rich white men. And if I don't know if we need any more examples than what we've seen. The trial date in the New York They call it hush money. I call it election interference case involving Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal in the National Enquirer. That trial date has been set for April 15th. There will be jury selection that begins that day. So justice is coming. Justice is coming. So we have a lot to kind of go through. We'll kind of pick and choose our way through. As
Yeah.
typical, we've talked about this before. I sent Anthony a brain dump, as I referred to it. So thank you for navigating your way through that. I think the biggest thing for me that I wanted to kind of talk about is the chaos that continues in the House of Representatives. Because for those of you who don't know, Mike Johnson doing his job as a Speaker of the House, attempting to keep the government open, needed Democrats to pass a spending bill, and the whiny right flank and all their friends with Marjorie all quiet got all angry. So they introduced a motion to vacate every house, every session of the House. So that this is the 118th House. One of the first things you do is establish rules. And one of the rules that Kevin McCarthy had to kind of give into to become Speaker was that any one member of the House can submit what's referred to as a motion to vacate. We've lived it before. Nobody wants to live it again. The idea behind it is that if there's enough votes to vacate, then you're booted. As it sits right now, there's a 2-seat majority. It will go down to 1 for the Republicans when Mike Gallagher leaves the House next week. So when it came to McCarthy, I kind of wanted to see him gone because he was a snake. As much as a despicable person that Mike Johnson is, I want to govern. I want to pass funding for Ukraine. I want to pass funding for Taiwan and for Israel, and I want to keep the government moving. So if he needs Democrats to do it, I'd be okay with it. Thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, I find it ironic that the GOP and MAGA
Tap,
keep
tap, tap, guys.
complaining
Like
about
and share, please. Sorry.
how nothing's getting done. They had Marjorie Taylor Greene in a box and they let her out.
A cage, you mean?
Well, I wasn't going there because the imagery was just
I gotcha.
much for me.
Fair enough.
But they did put baby in a corner. And
Right.
if you want to get something done, you got to put several babies back in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put the suspected assayer of children in a box or a cage. You've got to stick MGT in there. You've got to get Chip Roy in there.
Mm-hmm.
The guy from Wisconsin's leaving, so that's one less.
Yep.
But all of this can be resolved if Republicans would stop voting for stupid people and unqualified people. The amount of unqualified House members with an R after their name is staggering. And you know how I know they're unqualified? They don't co-sign legislation. They don't write legislation.
Right.
They have no written material on the committees that they're on. When they're on committees, it's performative bullshit and not actual work. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see if, and I can't stand Mike Johnson personally, but it'll be interesting to see if he grows a pair and learns how to be a leader and govern.
He's in a weird spot because if he brings the Ukraine funding bill to the floor, it will pass, and that's what the right doesn't want. If he doesn't, then the Democrats won't save it. So what do you want? What do you want to do, Mike? Do you want to do what the majority of Congress wants and fund Ukraine and Taiwan, right? The large majority, or do you want to look for another job and become another talking head on some far right wing news?
Well, look, NBC hires only the best, so
oh my God,
you should go get a job with them.
Yeah. So you want to talk about that a little bit? Go ahead if you want, Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to lean into that
Please.
a little bit. This is super important. Dear MAGA, all news is corporate news if it's on the television. So ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox Entertainment, CNN, MSNBC are all performative, biased news channels that are owned by publicly traded corporations that care about one thing. That's making money because that's their job. The news is somewhere probably in the top 10. Certainly, I don't think it cracks the top 5. I'm not talking about the individuals that work there. I'm talking about the modus operandi of these media conglomerates. Hiring the former chair of the RNC to come be a conservative talking head for NBC News. First of all, I don't know if Ms. McDaniels knows actually anything about our government, how it works, how it's supposed to work, the intent of the framers, anything about any of the amendments. I know she has a fascination with flowers and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars buying flowers.
And lying.
Cool. I like
She loves
flowers.
lying.
And loves lying.
Yep.
But here's what pisses me off about companies like NBC. She literally went on TV. I don't know. She had several interviews. She may have hit all of the networks. And she said there was something fishy about the 2020 election and that Joe Biden did not win it legitimately.
Yep.
And she repeated that every time she was on the news. And then yesterday, she tries to come up with this performative canned bullshit. Oh, well, when you're the head of the RNC, you have to take one for the team. No. You don't have to be a serial liar, an election denier, a person who is complicit in racism and bigotry. You don't have to be that person. I thought she was raised better. I wonder what her uncle, Senator Romney, has to say.
Right. Exactly. Not just the election. It wasn't as bad. I mean, that's bad enough, but she was also integral in the whole fake electors plot and the whole 9 yards. And it's interesting because there's been some press that's come out from people on MSNBC today, and they are separating themselves from that decision
Completely.
that NBC made. So it's interesting. Listen, I think alternative voices on networks like Jessica Tarloff, for example, on Fox News, I think it's necessary because I think it's really important to have remember that old show, Point Counterpoint. I think it's necessary to have those kinds of conversations. But where's your credibility and your integrity when you bring somebody on the air, to your point, who's been an election denier?
Right, and the fact that they're paying her $300,000 a year, so apparently crime and lying does pay about $300K a year.
Shit, and we still haven't gotten our Soros check for March yet. What the hell's going on?
Listen, I need to talk to you about this.
Damn it!
So the last check bounced.
Yeah, mine too.
And I was on the TikTok shop, and I was looking at the various ice machines because I love the TikTok shop.
We all do. Love the TikTok shop.
And I went to my account and noticed that I had a fee on my account, and it was because my Soros check bounced.
Damn it.
I have yet to hear from the Soros camp as to whether or not they're going to pay my $29 overdraft fee. By the way, those are going away. Thank you, President Biden. Appreciate it.
I know.
But it's really a shame because I'm constantly out there talking about how great Soros is.
Totally.
Carrying what the hell were those signs people used to do in the 20s? The sandwich billboard signs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Just like Roger Stone and his Nixon tattoo, I had my George Soros tattoo. I just got it finished over the weekend. It's awesome. It's beautiful. It's so nice.
I've been thinking about doing Biden in my lower back, like my rocker on my motorcycle vest, like I Love Joe or something like that.
What do they refer to that? Your tramp stamp. Yeah, your Biden tramp stamp. That's right. That's right. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things. It's all about integrity, and I don't know what kind of decision that I don't know what that says about their integrity. Eyeballs, to your point. Another interesting thing coming out of the Congress this weekend was Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski has said that she is absolutely, unequivocally not supporting Donald Trump, and she is disgusted with her own party. Yeah, and she's prepared to even leave the GOP Not that she would necessarily become a Democrat, but just to become another independent voice. And she voted to impeach twice. I think maybe not twice, but at least one time. Or she voted to remove from office at least once. So what this means basically is that we see the implosion of the Republican Party right in front of our eyes at every single turn. We've been talking about it. Meanwhile, we talk about elections being about contrast. Joe Biden campaign recently announced $50 million they've raised in the last 3 weeks since the State of the Union, and Trump is broke and borrowing money from the RNC to pay his legal bills. And that's just the Biden campaign that they've raised $50 million. That's not even the DNC. They're still raising money like crazy. And the RNC is outspending their inbound donations. Small donors are drying up. We know a lot of the traditional corporate donors are sort of turned off. You guys still want to hook your wagon to that star right there, that clown? We know that Biden is better than Trump in every way. Would love to have somebody come up here and tell us tonight, prove us wrong. We know it in every way. There's not one argument you can make to tell us that Trump is better than Biden. We'll challenge you. Go for it. Something else that we were talking about is about how during COVID, I thought this was interesting. Again, as we continue to find the attacks on brown skinned people, because that's what the right likes to do, without realizing that without immigrant labor, our economy would have crumbled during COVID. They literally saved our economy because they were the ones that were doing what was the term that we're using during COVID? Essential workers.
Essential workers.
They were deemed as essential workers during that time, and they literally kept our economy afloat. Meanwhile, 600 or half a $1 trillion in tax revenue, ITIN numbers. You have one, you pay taxes. So, all right, let's we'll bring up Mikey.
Let's do it.
We've talked to Mikey before. Mikey's a friend. Good evening, sir.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
And I'm good. How are you guys? I love you both dearly.
Thank you, boss. Back at you.
Yeah. And I agree with you that the immigrant population in this country has done incredible things and did help us through the pandemic. But there were quite a few of us that did too.
No doubt. Believe me, I did not mean that to come across the wrong way, but you're absolutely right. Everybody.
I'm one of those people that was put in the brunt of it, and I'm not even talking about the healthcare workers that are heroes, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I was one of the lowly energy employees that kept the grid going to keep everything up and was given nothing. We were told, yeah, wash your hands. Oh, here's some sanitizer. Maybe we'll get you a mask. And I watched people fall, families collapse from the disease that was passed around. But I don't mean to attack it like that.
I hear you, bro. And I misspoke there. I did not mean that to come across as that it wasn't involve everybody.
And I appreciate you saying that, truly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back to the comments. Keep rocking on. I love you guys.
Appreciate you, bud.
Don't stop.
Appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Friends, I have a request. In the chat, you will see Bad Bunny 71. I would like to ask that you follow that account, please. For those of you who have not been in one of Bad Bunny's lives, Bad Bunny is a mod on this account and also on my backup, and I mod for her. And I think it's interesting, if you ever go into her lives, she gets a lot of men who think that they're smarter than she is, and it's quite enjoyable to watch her dunk on them regularly. So please, Bad Bunny 71, Bunny, if you can make another comment so everybody can see you. And I would ask that you guys follow her because she needs a few hundred more followers so she can get her live access up and running on her backup account. So there you go, friend. Seriously, if you want to, I'm telling you, you see it every single night when she does it. She'll have a lot of men in there who think they're going to outsmart her or out debate her, and she literally destroys them regularly. So it's fun to watch. Bad Bunny 71. It's her backup. I'll do. I appreciate that. All right, let's bring.
It is fun to watch.
It is. Let's bring Nikki up. Let's go over ground rules real quick. And
Hello.
hi there.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you too. What are our ground rules this evening, my friend?
Okay, everybody. I hope y'all had a very good weekend. Please, everybody, no caps in the chat. It's the way that Fax and Anthony and the mods all discuss back and forth. It's the way that we can get their attention. If you type in caps, we will just warn you for the first time and then we'll mute you. We really don't want to do that, so just be respectful and please don't type in caps. There is no hate speech, no spamming, and no misinformation. Hate speech will immediately be either muted or blocked. Spamming and misinformation, we will give you a warning, then we'll mute you, depending on what it is. We're assuming that everybody can be adults, so just to do that, and they can all have a conversation. Anthony and Fax, and I say it all the time, are probably two of the smartest people that I know, and they want to have a conversation. And they match energy. So if you come up here and are calm and want to talk and stuff, they will match your energy. And we do have people in the chat that know this for a fact because they've been up here and have had wonderful conversations. And we've been blown away in the past couple of weeks by some of these conversations. So if you come up in the box, bring some information with you. You can show it on the screen if you need to. We can look it up if you need to. Just be respectful. Anybody in the chat, please be respectful of anybody in the box, whether you agree with them or not. Whether you're MAGA, whether they're MAGA, it doesn't matter. Anybody needs to show respect for somebody up here. There is no shaming anybody or anything, no like name calling. If there's a veteran in the box, there's no stolen valor things. There's no nothing. Anthony's the veteran. He's the one who will call anything for anyone. So if there's any issues to be called, it's on Anthony. None of us are to speak on that, but there is no disrespecting a veteran in this box. That's a hard pass for me. I doesn't, and the guys. Any questions? All of the mods, we have our little things next to our names. Please feel free to ask us. We're more than happy to answer any of the questions. If you have a question about the live, a question you want to ask them, a question about getting in the box, whatever it is, please feel free to ask. We really are more than happy to answer. We don't bite, usually.
Just nibble, just a little nibble. That's all.
Just a little bit. I hope that you guys continue to have really great conversations. It's been going really well. We've had some really good conversations lately. So I really hope that they continue. If you don't like what you're hearing, you can be an adult and just scroll out. Mm-hmm. That's all you have to do. You don't have to say anything like that. So everybody please, look at that, we're already up to 44. Everybody let's keep going. Let's get it up to like 50 before like 7:00 if we could do that, and share it for speak for yourself. But I'm sorry, okay, I don't bite, Bunny bites. There you go.
we know that though.
I know, she said speak for myself. So
thank you, Nikki.
Please like and share the live as much as you can. We're trying to bring up some more traffic. For some reason, MAGA seems to be hiding lately. So share it with your favorite people and your not favorite people.
Appreciate you, friend.
Anytime. And I will see you both later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Anthony and I have said this.
Anthony, tell your wife I said hi.
Boom. Mugs in the merch store on sale with that quote. We have the best mods on TikTok. I don't care what anybody says. We'll fight you for it. I would also like to ask, I learned this from a fellow creator who I respect, Priscilla, that if you type like MAGA 2024, Trump 2024, Hunter Biden's cock, Hunter Biden's laptop, all these kinds of things in the chat, apparently fire up the algorithm. So I'd say let's try it. Let's see how that goes. But anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. I think what we should probably do is kind of level set on a couple of things about the events of today. Is that we know that, that's right, border, spell it wrong. Good job. Hunter Biden's laptop. Exactly. I know. Exactly. Hunter Biden is God. Twump 20. That's a good one, Warner. Yes. Apparently MTG does want Hunter's eggplant. That is very, very true. We know the decision to reduce the bond from 464 to 175. Again, thank you to Legal Dad. Shout out to Legal Dad for kind of coming through and explaining to us. Hopefully there were some people who had some and again, not just MAGA, but I think a lot of people were a little bit confused, and I had some questions that he was kind enough to answer for us about, where and how they came up with the math and disgorgement and things like that. What we know is that the bond has been reduced to 175, but I have a great quote from Letitia James, and I want to read it if I can find it. What did she say? She said, this is a spokesperson for New York Attorney General Letitia James. Donald Trump is still facing accountability for his staggering fraud. The court has already found that he engaged in years of fraud to falsify and inflate his net worth and unjustly enrich himself, his family, and his organization. The $464 million judgment plus interest against Donald Trump and the other defendants still stands. That's the entire case, right? So this is about the bond. And I also, I think it's important that we go through this because you'll recall that Trump said he did not have the money. Now, what you say out on the campaign trail or what you say on Truth Social or wherever it might be is quite a bit different than what your attorneys say in a court of law, because his attorneys quite regularly in the court of law have been saying our client does not have the money, cannot provide this bond on his own, is going to have to seek securities. Over the weekend, from Truth Social, this is the official account of Donald J. Trump, the real Donald Trump. I don't want to confuse anybody. I won't do his impression because I don't do it very well. Through hard work, talent, and luck, I currently have almost, quote, $500 million in cash, a substantial amount of which I intended to use in my campaign for president. The often overturned political hack judge on the rigged and corporate AG case, where I have done nothing wrong, knew this and wanted to take away from me and wanted to take it away from me. And that's where and why he came up with this shocking number, which coupled with his crazy interest demand is approximately $454 million. I did nothing wrong except win an election in 2016 that I wasn't expected to win, did even better in 2020, and now lead by a lot in 2024. This is communism in America. So two things can't be true. You're either broke, which you are, or you have $500 million in the bank in cash, which you don't. Facts are hard.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's baffling that his followers, and we do call them cult members because they act like a cult member. You'd think by now somebody would get a 10 key, a calculator, an abacus, a pencil eraser, and a piece of paper, and do the math.
Right. So,
right? Like
friends,
you either have
HVAC is in the request box. So, Jeff, I know you're listening. You and I have had many chit chats, and I have no problem talking to you, bro. But I'm going to give you one opportunity. It's going to be one topic at a time. You will behave like an adult, or you don't stay. It's really that simple. If you would like to come up and have a conversation, I will give you a 30-second intro so that I can affirm that you can behave like a big boy. Okay. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just waiting for you to kick me.
Okay. Well, can you act like a grown-up?
Yes, sir. I can.
Okay. So I have no problem with giving you an opportunity to talk, but we know your game that you just try to steamroll, and that's not going to happen here. So if you want to have a conversation, we can. I will kick you whenever I feel like it, because that's what I do. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. So what would you like to talk about this evening, Jeff?
I just feel like you're about to kick me, but Biden is better than Trump in every way. Prove us wrong.
Correct.
Can we talk about that?
Sure.
I mean, I think there's. Can I be honest here? And I'm not just trying to like prove you wrong, but I think there's some ways that. Oh, sorry about that. I think there's some ways that I can say that like Trump was slightly better than Biden in like certain ways, right?
Okay. So let's take them one at a time, Jeff. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
So give me one example where you think Trump is better than Biden and back it up with facts, please.
Sure. I'll keep this one really like above the surface. I think that at its face, if you compare the two, like in public speaking, I would say that Trump is just I would say he makes his points a little bit better than Biden.
So you think Donald Trump calling, referring to the ramparts and the airports in 1775 is an example of him speaking better than Biden?
Oh, absolutely.
Really, Jeff?
Well, just in the sense that
Were there airports in 1775?
were there airports in 1775?
Yeah, were there?
I don't think so. When was the? No, probably not.
Okay, so then once again, I'll ask you the question. So Donald Trump referring to the ramparts and the airports in 1775, you think that proves that he's a better public speaker than Joe Biden?
That tidbit does not, but I
Okay.
have other examples.
Me too. I mean, I could literally play the soundbite if you wanted me to. I don't need to.
But
Um,
do you? Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, if you get to give one example, then I can give examples too. I mean, I think
Sure.
we could both give examples of like them speaking in public where it was like a complete guffaw, right? I
Okay,
just think
so then,
Biden's worse.
okay, okay, and you think Biden's worse? Why?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to compare the guffaws, I mean, that would just be Biden.
Really? So if I
Sure.
were to play you the 4 minute of audio of Donald Trump's guffaws,
Hmm.
would you accept that or no?
Yes, it would. Can I
You would.
play you a 10-minute audio of Biden's guffaws?
Sure. So I think the point is, I think my point is, Jeff, if is that really where you want to go? Is that the point you want to make? Because can we both agree? I will totally give you that Joe Biden makes guffaws. No doubt about it. Will you also give me that Donald Trump makes them too?
Fair enough. Absolutely, he does.
Okay.
He does.
Okay. So then maybe there's another topic we should talk about.
Okay, okay. I mean, I think where I was getting at with that is like one over the other, but we can move on because you're right. That's not like a good. That was just my first point. That's not a
Okay.
great point. But um, let's
So just to be
see.
clear, so we're agreeing that they both make guffaws, and it's probably not a relevant argument to make for this, right?
I mean, for you and I who can have a like actual conversation, yes. But for the bullet points around each president that the people believe in, I think it's valid. Do you know what I
Uh,
mean?
no, I disagree. So
In the
let's try to
sense
find.
that like just in the sense that like I think a lot of American people have seen some of the things that Joe Biden has done just like physically and they don't feel like competent about him as a leader, you know what I mean? And same with Trump. Same with Trump. I'll give you that.
That's kind of my point, right? Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fair enough. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Next. See how easy it is to stay on one topic at a time, man? It's not that hard.
can I instead of answer so you asked me the first question, can I ask you the next question?
Sure.
Okay, so can you name me in one way that Biden is better than Trump?
He's not under a federal indictment or criminal indictment. He hasn't been found civilly liable for rape. His entire organization wasn't built. He doesn't have a fraudulent company. I mean, should I continue?
No, no, no. Let's talk about that. Would you? And I'm not trying to be like
Well,
I'm
did I
trying
answer
to.
your question?
No, you did, you did. That
Okay.
makes sense. But the
Okay.
only issue I have with this, right, is like if you're using the legal system as an like your example to say like one is worse over the other, like has the legal system always been fair?
Was Donald Trump found liable for essaying E. Jean Carroll? Yes or no?
Yes, but can you answer my question?
Yeah. So again,
But has the legal system always been found fair?
no, it was proven today that the legal system favors rich white men
Wait, if it did, then how would have Trump been found liable?
because he did it.
Wait, he was found liable for SA.
Correct.
Right, then if it favors rich white men, well, how would he have been found liable?
Not in every case, Jeff. He did get a gift today by the appeals court in New York to lower his bond from 464 to 175 without explanation.
I agree. Wouldn't that go against your point that they favor, rich white men though? Like
Not at all.
you know what I mean?
Not at all. There was evidence to support him essaying E. Jean Carroll, and that's what the jury found.
No, I was talking about he was granted a lower bail or bond.
Correct.
Right, then wouldn't that favor him?
Correct. That's what I said.
Rich white man.
Yes.
Okay, so we at least agree on this, right? I'm not saying you're right in some sense, but we also agree that just because you're a rich white man doesn't necessarily determine whether this legal system is going to be just or not.
Let's be real. Now, who's advantaged more in our society? Who is
Rich white men.
Exactly. That's my point. This is another
Right,
example.
and if that was but hang on, if you were right about that, how could you say that? Why would they be? How would he be indicted 4 times and charged 91 times? Well, minus 6.
It doesn't change the fact that rich white men don't go to jail. But if you could look through history to find who gets advantage in our system more than rich white men, and the answer is no one. It doesn't mean that they're not found guilty. It doesn't mean they don't commit crimes. I mean, again, be real, Jeff. You're smarter than that. Come on.
Okay, I agree. Right, you're saying that the system disproportionately affects like some people more than others.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I do. But if you're going to use that argument, like, how could you say that I don't see that system helping Trump when they're indicting him 4 times and charging him 91 times?
88 now. But we know you haven't read the indictments, Jeff. We know that.
I've read, you'd be surprised what I've read.
Have you read all the indictments, Jeff?
Every single one, no.
Okay, that's what I just said.
Yeah,
okay.
But why? Hang on. Are you saying that, like, just because people haven't read the indictments, they somehow, like, what's your determination on that?
Because if you haven't read them, then you don't know what all the charges are, right?
I mean, not necessarily. Like, you couldn't.
Do you
like,
know
for
what
example,
all the charges are?
Yeah, mostly. Sure, like obstruction. Like,
right.
What case are you talking about specifically?
Any case, pick one.
Sure, the documents case. Like, he's charged with obstruction of. He's charged with willful retention, obstruction of justice. He's uncharged under RICO under several crimes in Georgia.
That's in Georgia. Yep. Right. RICO's not it's a category. It's not a crime. It's a
Wait,
category.
but facts. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Can we be honest right now? I've been honest with you. Like, I would appreciate it if you didn't try to make it seem like I don't know what I'm talking about. Because
I didn't say that. I just asked you if you read all the indictments, and you honestly admitted that you haven't. That's all I asked. So I mean,
yeah, true. And that's why I asked you, like, what implication does that have, though?
Because so for example, did you ever write book reports in school?
Book reports?
Yeah.
Sure.
So part of the assignment was to what? Read the book and write the report. If you just wrote the report without reading the book, then would that be fulfilling the requirements of the assignment?
Only if the teacher, like, yeah, you could,
Jeff,
like, not being facetious. Hang on. I'm not. Yeah, sure. You're right about that. But
okay.
I would also say this, though, because you could write a book report and you could just copy your friend's work, right? Also,
which would be cheating. Okay, so my point is to be able to come up in whether it be here or Political Moms Lives or with RTP or with anybody else when you're doing your rounds, and try to provide context and base your statements in fact when you haven't read everything. That becomes disingenuous. And I think that's where you get yourself in trouble. That's my advice to you. Dude to dude, okay?
Do you think I've been disingenuous?
Hold on. Yes.
Sure.
Many. Right now, no. But many times. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Sure. I agree with that. Sure.
Yeah, many times. So that's my point. So, like, for example, in the documents case, if that indictment is so, even the superseding is so easy to read. Have you read the entire indictment for the documents case?
The superseding?
Either one. There's 2 of them.
I read quite a few indictments, but at this point, I mean, I couldn't remember them.
Okay, so then I'm going to take that as a no. So if you read them, you would know exactly what he was charged with. Now, I've said this 1,000 times, and I'll say it again to you. I believe in the rule of law. I think everybody deserves a fair trial. I hope everybody gets a rigorous defense, and I respect the decision, whether it's pro or against, okay? It doesn't change the fact if we live in a society that supports the rule of law, allegations of crime need to be investigated. So without reading the indictments, you don't know, or not you or anybody, without reading the indictments, no one knows what the charges are. So I
No,
think if
again, you don't have to read because I think a lot of the news stations are going to set forth what the charges are without the layman reading them, right? Like
I
everybody knows what the
disagree
charges
because that
are.
becomes opinion.
I mean, it's opinion if they're not telling the truth.
Well, that's my
Do you
point.
think
Why not just go to the source and read it? So I've read them all multiple times.
because people don't, I mean, yeah, because people are not as smart as you, right? Like there's layman's.
Thank you. I
That
appreciate that,
doesn't
bro. Right, but
but that
but
doesn't negate the people that are not as smart as you's opinion, right?
it does though because opinion and fact are not the same thing.
Well, one, if you're just, I mean, again, like I agree generally, but do you see how, how I would say you are a beacon of truth, right? But what if that beacon gets corrupted? I'm not saying you're
You,
corrupted.
you mean by my
No,
Soros
it's not.
checks that I haven't gotten yet, right?
No, no, but you agree, like beacons of truth, like say for Trump, right? You agree, like certain people, like such as Kash Patel, or like these like right wingers, like like they think they're telling the truth, but you would say they're probably just like propagandists or rhetoric, right?
Wouldn't you agree that they are?
Would I agree that they are? No.
Yeah. You don't think Cash Patel's a propagandist?
No, well, I mean, I think that everybody is a little bit of a propagandist, depending on.
Okay. So how do you cut through the maze and the haze of propaganda? I have a
So, like,
suggestion.
sure, yeah, you just look at the facts, sources,
Right.
right?
Like the
But that
indictments, for
doesn't
example.
mean, but would you, again, would you agree that most people that agree that Trump are guilty have not read the indictment, though?
Um, no, I would not agree with that. And
Oh, no.
I don't believe that Trump is guilty. I believe that there's evidence to warrant an indictment. Now, do I think what he did, if proven, I mean, he should go to jail. Do I think what he did supports my assumption that I believe he's committed crimes against our country? Absolutely. No doubt about it. That's why it's necessary to read it.
But then you agree that he's innocent until proven guilty, though.
Absolutely.
Then, then you agree he's innocent.
I believe he's innocent until proven guilty.
But you believe he's going to be. It makes sense, right? Because you're right. There's a lot of. So this just begs the next question, right? So
Okay.
what's the number one piece of proof that you believe, like, out of all the four indictments, which one do you believe is the most powerful? Like, which one do you think is going to go down for? Because the one with like Letitia James, or what's her name, Fonnie Willis.
Yep.
That one seems a little weak, but there's others that might seem strong. Which one do you think?
I don't think the Georgia case is weak at all. I think it's just difficult to prove every element of the crime. The one that I'll answer your question, I promise. But I think the one that troubles Trump the most, quite frankly, there's two. He doesn't want people taking his money. So the trial that's going to start April 15th, we found out today, that's a big one. That's a paper trail. That's fraud. I mean, he's going to get convicted there. But the one that I think is the most obvious and the most cut and dry is the documents case, because there's clear violations that he obstructed justice. He was given 18 months to turn over the documents, lied about it numerous times, didn't turn it over. They found more documents there. And the documents that they found were national defense information, which is a violation of the Espionage Act. It's cut and dry. It's cut and dry. I don't even know what the
can we
defense
talk
is.
about this one?
Sure.
Okay, so because this, I mean, this is
So you
the
asked me.
general.
Before we continue, you
Go
asked
ahead.
me. So I want to ask you which one
Mhm.
you think is the most serious.
That's I think that's the one I would agree about.
Okay.
Right, that's because you're right. Like
Again, if proven.
right, if proven, right? Because we all agree that maybe a president that was no longer president, who previously had the authority but no longer has the authority, took these documents, put them in his home, right? And it's not that we think that like taking these documents is a crime, right?
The crime is not the possession. The crime is the
Mhm.
obstruction of justice and the willful retention. That's the crime.
But well, I mean, because don't you agree that like depending on who possesses the. Wait, are you saying that Trump possessed these documents legally?
What I'm saying is he obstructed justice. The charge is not the possession of documents, Jeff. The charge is obstruction of justice. Wait a minute. The charge is obstruction of justice. And because the documents that he obstructed justice over were national defense information, that becomes violation of the Espionage Act.
Okay, I agree. We'll move on to that point, but first tell me, was his retention of the documents after he was president legal? Yes or no?
The possession of?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's what I'm trying to say to you.
Right. So at least we'll keep going. I'm not trying to do a whataboutism, but we agree that Biden did the same thing.
Different circumstances, but more or less, I'll give you that. Mike Pence, yeah, I mean,
sure, but
the possession of the documents. Wait a minute, the possession of the documents is not the crime. Okay, that so I want you to accept that. The possession
I agree. But I agree with that. But
there's no but.
Could possession of classified documents when you're not allowed to have them be a crime?
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. The possession is not the charge. It's willful retention.
I know.
Jeff, you're doing it again. Don't go there. We're not going to bounce around here. Obstruction of justice is what he was charged with. Willful retention of national defense information because the documents.
I know. I agree.
Let me finish.
Sorry.
The documents that they found were NDI documents. That's where the crime is. 18 months he had to turn them over. Why didn't he? Why did he lie about it numerous times? So why did he change his story numerous times?
Sure. Why did he lie about it numerous times about the NDI?
No, about saying that he had turned over all the documents. Why?
Turned over all the documents? I mean, you're going to have to prove that he lied, though. I'm saying he didn't lie.
He did lie. He signed an attestation statement claiming he turned over everything. And when they found out that he hadn't, that's why they had to execute the search warrant. That's why you have to read the document, bro.
Wait, so wait, hang on. So he signed a what?
An attestation statement affirming that everything that we are turning over is everything you asked for. The subpoena required him to turn over everything with classified markings. He didn't.
Okay, hang on. So slow down. So he signed over, again, there was, I get it, there was a subpoena, right? But
correct.
Who, are you saying he signed an affidavit?
The subpoena required him to turn over everything with classified markings. He signed a statement. His attorneys signed a statement at his direction claiming that these are the only documents that we have and this is everything. And it wasn't. That's when they executed the search warrant and that's when they found more.
So
that's why you need to read the document. That's why you need to read.
So how did that okay, again, just because so if I did read the documents, would that mean I knew what I was talking about? Then I would be right.
You would know exactly what I'm explaining to you right now. That's my point.
But
you would understand that because you didn't know.
You would still disagree with me, though.
No, I wouldn't. What would there be to disagree about?
If I read, okay, so if
exactly, Earth 1 here, Jeff. Earth 2 there.
Yeah, sure. So, we could interpret it. They're reading a different way. Like,
no. When interviewed, so this is page 20 of 49 in the indictment. When interviewed by the FBI in May 2022, this is paragraph 47, regarding the location and movement of boxes before the production to NARA, Walt Nauta made false statements and misleading statements as set forth in count 38 of this indictment, falsely stating that he was not aware of Trump's boxes being brought to Trump's residence for his review before Trump provided 15 boxes to NARA in January 2022, falsely stating that he did not know how the boxes that he and Trump moved back to Trump's residence after his attorney investigated the commercial truck for delivery to NARA on January 17, 2022 had gotten to the residence. So that is an example of why you need to read the documents, Jeff.
So again,
let me finish.
Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What you are not willing to accept, and this is frustrating because I think you're smarter than this. What you're not willing to accept is this is a clear indication of obstruction of justice, right? When you're given us, if I said to you, all right, Jeff, I want all of your hair products, every one you have in your house. I want all of them. And then every single one, No matter what category it's in, the subpoena says everyone. And you decide you're only going to give me a box of 15. And all of a sudden, we're like, oh, we think there's more. We execute a search warrant. We go back in. We find the stockpile you have in your closet. Did you or did you not violate the subpoena? Yes or no?
So if wait, so you if the hair gel was like a classified item,
Jeff, again, let me ask you one more time. If I gave
okay,
you a subpoena and I said, I need you to turn over everything that's related to taking care of your hair, all of it, no matter what it is, all of it, and you
sure.
only turned over a box, and we said, there's more. We know there's more. We go back in with a search warrant and we find more. Are you or are you not in violation of the subpoena? Yes or no?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you
Can I
are.
answer? I
Sure.
Sure. So yes, if the narrative which you put forth is correct, I would be.
That's what happened.
Okay. Can I set a second narrative forth that might be different?
Hang on, Rusty. That's actually, Rusty, I'm going to drop you down. I'm going to
The
take this one on
only
my own.
Here's what I'm saying, Fox. Okay. If you're saying that the
I want to go back.
president,
No, I'm not going to let you move on from this. I'm not going to let you move
no,
on.
I want to talk
Hold
about it.
on,
Trust me.
hold on. This is a key point. So when the subpoena was very clear, turn over everything with classified markings. Okay,
Right.
everything,
Mm-hmm.
everything. And what I gave you are some examples of what the Trump team did. They moved boxes from one room to another, knowing full well that the attorneys were coming down looking for all documents marked with classification markings.
So you said the
Well, wait, let me
attorneys
finish.
moved.
Hold on. Let me finish. Hold on. Let me
Yes,
finish.
I'm listening.
Don't interrupt. So specifically, 15 boxes were set aside. Those were what the Trump attorneys were told. This is everything. They signed that statement saying this is everything there is. They gave them to the FBI. FBI goes back and it's like, or NARA and the FBI, combination of the two. They realized that there were still some missing. That's why they executed the search warrant. And that's when they found him in the bathroom and in the lake room and on the ballroom floor.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point, Jeff. That is obstruction of justice. That's the hair gel model that I just broke down for you.
Okay. So again,
Even
how do
better
you
said.
know?
Even better said. Hold on. Even better said.
Yeah.
Better said. Why
Mhm.
were there still documents found there after the subpoena was issued, asking them to turn over everything? Why is that?
Sure. I guess
help
there's
you
an
there?
explanation.
What is it?
Can I tell you? Sure. Can I ask a question?
Well, no. Answer my
Do
question
you
first.
believe?
Answer my
Sure.
question.
The explanation is Trump didn't know every single box that was in his house.
Then why
Right?
did
He
his
didn't know
why did he
every
and his team
single. Well,
why did
you're
he
not
and his
letting me
team move
answer.
but why
You
did
didn't
he and
know.
his team
Oh,
move them, Jeff? Why did he and his team
you,
deliberately move
you.
boxes from one room to another?
Well, how do
Why?
you know they did that?
Because it's in the indictment. That's why you
It's
got to
in
read
the
it.
indictment. Okay, so show me where in the indictment where he said again, like I'm not trying to be I agree. Listen to what I'm saying though, right? If you're saying Trump did not himself sign an affidavit, right? His lawyers did.
At
Okay?
Trump's direction. They
Okay,
asked Trump.
perfect. Now
They
in
at,
that go
Are
ahead.
you trying to say that Trump has no culpability because his attorney signed it?
I'm not saying he has no culpability, but when you're talking about an affidavit, I have to look into the individual that wrote the sworn statement and then signed it. Okay? Is that
Jeff,
I'm not being trying to be
that's the
obtuse.
most ridiculous argument, man, and you know it. Come on. Do
I'm not
better.
even making an argument yet.
No,
Hang
but
on.
you are because you still haven't addressed the question.
Wait,
When
do you
you're asked,
understand my argument though?
it's ridiculous.
So what is it though? What is it? Oh wait, hang on.
You're trying to make
Facts. Don't just say it's ridiculous.
it
Just tell me why.
is. It's
But
ridiculous.
why? Okay,
Telling
tell
you
me why.
why. I'm telling you why. Because
Listening.
again, what you're trying to do is thread the needle here, saying, well, maybe Trump didn't know, and maybe his attorneys thought that was everything that was there. When there's clear indications of numerous examples of how they obstructed justice, and you haven't read the document,
Wait, hang on. Then you
wait. I'm not done.
you actually do get my
Excuse
argument.
me. Hold on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
You told me to answer your
Sorry.
question. I'm trying to do it. Again,
Okay.
self-control, right? Regulate. Be an
Mhm,
adult,
mhm.
self-control. Because you haven't read the indictments. You haven't bothered to take the time to read it.
I didn't say that.
Well, if you did, then you would know.
I've read about 3/4 of the indictments.
Then okay, but you haven't read this. So that's my point. So again,
Okay,
let me
but
finish.
again,
Don't
what
Jeff,
if I
don't
read
interrupt.
some? Okay,
Jeff,
sorry.
don't interrupt. Last
Sorry.
chance, bro. Seriously. You got to behave, all right? You haven't read the indictment, so you do not know the specifics as to why this is obstruction of justice. And I don't understand why you don't just read it. Because if you read it, then you could go back and refer to it as well. You could say facts, page 24, paragraph 3. What does this mean to you? Because you haven't done that. Why should I have to hold your hand through it when you're being so disingenuous,
Can I
unwilling
respond?
to accept it? Why?
Okay, so yeah, the same reason why the Democrats who haven't read the indictments are still correct about
I'm
what they're
talking to
saying about
you.
Trump's.
I'm talking
Huh?
to you.
Right, I already told you I read some of the indictments. Why are you so hung up on this?
Because you haven't, if you're unaware of what the obstruction of justice is, then I can't help you with that, man. I
I
just
already
can't.
know what the obstruction
Then
of
what is it?
justice
Then
was.
what is it?
Yes, him withholding the documents from the FBI.
Right. That's a crime.
Yeah, right. So, but how come it wasn't withholding them from NARA? Kind of weird,
It,
right?
it is withholding them from NARA. They're government docs.
No, NARA is not a legal entity. What?
NARA, dude, seriously? NARA is the one that contacted the DOJ and the FBI saying, we're still missing documents. He told us he turned over everything. He didn't. The FBI is the one that issued the search warrant.
Can I ask a question?
Address what I
When
just
was
said.
the last time?
Address what I just said.
Sure. When was the last time NARA?
No, address what I just said.
Okay, what did you just say? Go ahead.
Again, listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth.
What? Now you're being mean
NARA,
to me. I don't know
NARA
why. I've
is
been nice. Go
no,
ahead.
dude. You're being disingenuous again. You're falling
No,
into the
I'm
same trap.
not.
Yes, you are. Come on, stop being like a baby.
Come on, man.
You are. Don't be a baby.
Okay,
Seriously,
I won't be a baby. I won't be a baby.
don't.
Wait, how am I being? How am I being a baby?
Bro. Really? You again. It's self-control. Okay. You are
All right, I got you.
continuing the game that you like to play. NARA is the archivist of the United States. They are the keeper of the records. They were missing records. They negotiated with Trump for 18 months to turn over everything. Finally, they got the subpoena to turn over everything with classified markings. He didn't turn over everything. They realized they were still missing stuff. They contact the FBI, the DOJ. DOJ says, show us. Okay, we get it. There's still documents missing. Here's a search warrant. We found the documents you were looking for. That's how the process worked. Why is that so hard for you to accept?
No, actually, I agree, right?
Okay.
Right? So, but the only question I have is, why are all of a sudden NORA worrying about documents that presidents or vice presidents or whoever have? Why is this all changing all of a sudden? What has changed? Because there's never been an indictment on a president because of classified documents. Do you agree?
Because it's about obstruction of justice, Jeff. How many times do I have to say it to you?
But you're not answering the question, though.
I am. That's exactly the answer.
I agree with you. I already said there was obstruction of justice. I agree. Right? But
because everybody else turned them over.
Wait, hang on. Listen to the question. Why is NORA all of a sudden...
Nora's my niece.
Why is NORA... I agree. You're right. Why is NORA all of a sudden going to the FBI? Is this the first time that they've ever done this?
Because he didn't turn... Do you think they wanted to indict Trump?
Yes.
They gave him 18 months to turn these over, bro.
How long did they give Joe Biden?
They gave him 18 months to turn
They gave Joe
this
Biden
over.
18 months.
We're talking about Trump. 18 months.
Right, but do you see how this isn't a consistent argument?
Don't pivot, Jeff.
I'm not pivoting.
No, it's a pivot. You immediately pivoted.
How is that a pivot?
Did. Well, how long did I give Joe Biden? Again, we're talking about Trump. We're talking about this case, okay?
And I agree with you.
Okay, so then if you agree with me...
He's a criminal.
I didn't say that. You said that. I didn't say that.
No, hang on. You're right, because he willfully retained documents.
Right.
And you guys, just like with Al Capone, right? Like, they couldn't catch him up in any of his actual legal dealings, so they got him arrested for tax fraud, right?
Correct,
like
tax evasion.
Exactly. So that's the same thing they're doing with Trump. But how come they won't do it with Biden?
Did you read the Her report? I think I know the answer.
Yes, I read the Her report. I watched.
What did it say?
You want me to read it verbatim?
What did it say? What was his summary?
The summary was that he actually found no like evidence that this thing was true, just because Joe Biden couldn't quite remember, right? He couldn't
Not what he said.
There was no preponderance of evidence, basically.
The conclusion he made is they could not prove willful intent.
Exactly. So there was no preponderance of evidence. Am I wrong?
Well, again,
I'm right about that.
No, not really. So I'm going to refer to you to page, because you haven't read this either, page 254 of 388 of the Her indictment, because guess what, Jeff? I've read that too. This is page 254. It is not our role to assess, this is from the Her report. It is not our role to assess the criminal charges pending against Mr. Trump, but several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's are clear. Unlike the evidence involving Mr. Biden, the allegations set forth in the indictment of Mr. Trump, if proven, would clearly establish not only Mr. Trump's willfulness, but also serious aggravating facts. Most notably, after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for months, but he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. In contrast, Mr. Biden alerted authorities, turned in classified documents to the National Archives and the DOJ in 2022 and 2023, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his homes, permitted the seizure and review of handwritten notebooks he believed to be his personal property, and in numerous other ways cooperated with the investigation. You didn't read that, did you?
Oh, I definitely heard that, though.
Okay. But that wasn't the
So I
question
agree with
asked.
you. So
Okay.
wait, hang on. So regardless if I read it, I agree with you. So is that a problem?
Well, okay, you agree with
Wait,
me.
I'm
then
agreeing
why
with
are
you, right?
Okay, good.
All
If you
this
agree with me,
means-
then why pivot?
Sure, I'm not pivoting.
You
What
did.
are you talking
pivoted.
about?
You pivoted.
Wait, where was the pivot?
You pivoted away when we were talking about Trump. Well, how long do they give Biden? That's a pivot, dude.
No,
That's
hang
a
on.
pivot.
No, it's a parallel. It's not a pivot.
No, it's not a parallel. A parallel would mean they would be the same things, just running on
Yeah,
different
the
courses.
same things,
They're not
but
the same thing.
right.
They're not.
You're right. They aren't the same thing because
even close.
Biden was vice president.
Yeah.
That's
So, and
yeah, which
senator.
would be a lot worse.
No, incorrect. When you're a senator,
Wait,
you can have
who is
documents.
I agree. Okay, so who is more likely? Who can declassify documents? So the president or the vice president?
Both.
Oath?
Both.
What? Just
Both.
answer the question.
Both,
You didn't
I said.
answer it. Yeah, but
Both,
no
man.
one. So make your point. What's your point?
Both the president
Oh,
and the vice
both.
president can declassify.
Okay, but unilaterally.
Both the president and the vice president.
The
You didn't know that, did you?
the president and the vice president. Sure, I agree. If that's what you're saying.
Executive
but-
order one. Hold
but
on.
then you agree.
Hold on. Stop. Executive order 13526, classified national security information. Let's see. Part 1, section. Hold on. Where is it? Classification
Yes.
levels. Stand by. So section 1.3, classification authority. The authority to classify and declassify information originally may be exercised only by 1, the president and the vice president.
Keep going.
Agency heads and officials designated by the president and United States government officials delegated this authority pursuant to paragraph C of this section.
So basically, the vice president was
Have the same
delegated the
power.
authority.
The president and the vice president have the same powers to classify or declassify.
Right. So you agree presidents can declassify information.
Dude, you're
So-
doing it again. No, the
No,
question,
I'm not.
Jeff. Okay, stop
How am
talking.
I doing it again? Go ahead.
Because you're not listening. This entire conversation that we're having, all right? This is the game that you like to play. You move from one topic to another when you know you're getting dunked on. I'm going to ask you to be quiet for 30 seconds. If you can't do it, I'm going to kick you. Thank you for muting. Specifically, this case is about obstruction of justice. The argument that you're trying to make is that what Joe Biden did and Donald Trump did are the same things, and they're not. I just read you the summary from the Her report. Her, by the way, appointed to his post as U.S. Attorney by Donald Trump, appointed to this case by Merrick Garland, Department of Justice Attorney General. Joe Biden could have easily squashed this. He didn't. The classification is not relevant in this case. It's about obstruction of justice. Unfortunately for Mr. Trump, the documents that they recovered because he violated the subpoena were national defense information, and they were still not declassified, which makes it even worse. So the point is that you're not understanding the cases are not even close to the same. I do not know why you can't accept that. You may unmute.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you.
What
Okay.
part are you agreeing with?
The part that presidents and vice presidents can declassify classified documents. Okay.
Correct. Right?
Okay, perfect. So then what documents did Trump declassify versus the documents that Biden
It's
declassified,
not
which makes it
relevant, Jeff. It's
no, I
not
agree. Okay,
relevant.
not relevant. I agree. I agree.
Okay, then why did you ask it?
Just because, I mean, it's
You
just
trying to
an
play your
interesting
game?
question.
Are you trying to play the
And it's
HVAC
not,
game?
I
Come
mean,
on.
if
It's
you want to
not
kick me, you can
relevant.
kick me, man. I'm being nice. I don't.
You're being nice, but you're not saying, but you're not, you see,
Okay,
again,
let's talk about what you're talking about.
no, what we're going to
Chill,
talk
man.
about specifically is why don't you understand that this is a straight up case of obstruction of justice? What part of
Okay,
that do you
perfect.
not understand?
Okay, so Trump obstructed justice.
Correct.
Give me the example and the exact proof where he did it.
I
Just
did.
name one example.
I've already done
Yes,
that.
where the FBI said that he moved boxes after they already said they
They have it on surveillance. They
requested
have
the
it on surveillance. They have
boxes.
it on surveillance, Jeff. If you
Oh,
read
they
the
have. Okay, so in that surveillance,
read the
how can you
indictment.
prove?
Read the
Okay.
indictment.
Oh, read is that? That's what we have to default to. Okay.
Because
So
you
again,
haven't read it.
what if I can't read?
That's
What
not
the
my
fuck?
problem. You know what? If you can't read,
So
you know what you
what?
can
Well, you're
do.
just gonna insult
You know,
someone that can't
you know
read?
what? You know what? If you can't,
You're about
you
to
can
kick
listen.
me.
You can listen, right?
Yeah, I've been listening.
Okay, cool. You can go to Spotify and search for it, and you can listen to somebody read it to you.
Okay, I have listened to people read it to me.
Cool.
And what
That's
if you can't remember the words that they say? Who cares?
because then you're
Right?
just
This isn't a
stupid.
good argument.
Well, then you're
Oh,
just
you're just
stupid.
stupid. Oh, if you can't remember words, you're just stupid. Okay.
Yeah, Jeff, that would say you're stupid
Why?
because Jeff.
You
Well,
already
let's
said I'm kind of
all right.
smart.
Let's stop for a second. Let's stop for a second.
Yes,
Let's
I'm
stop for a
ready.
second. Okay. What did you have for dinner?
I'm going to
Nobody
have,
fucking cares. I tried. I gave him a long time. I tried. That's what happens. You see, just another example of the crap. I don't know why I can't. I'll bring Rusty up. Just read the damn indictments. What's up, bro?
Oh my God.
It's all right. I gave him a chance.
I know, but the just the obtuseness of these attempts to argue is beyond the pale. Well, what if you can't read? Well, what if you can't remember? Then stop debating people.
Yeah.
How about that? Then
Mm.
shut the fuck up, grab something shiny, and go in the corner.
Mm-hmm. Put your
You
thumb in your
know,
mouth. Little Jack Corner
yeah,
sat in the
it's like,
corner.
yeah. I mean, it just. It's like then stop. Then don't put on your profile debunking liberals one at a time. If you can't read and remember, then shut your cake hole.
And you know what? And you know what, Jeff? I know you're
Jesus.
still listening because you have a crush. You haven't debunked one liberal, so you might want to change your profile. Not one. Of course, he thinks he won.
Oh. Of course he does. Of course he does.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is the complete inability to be honest and self-critical.
Yeah, Jeff. I mean, the
They-
advice that we're trying to give you, man. Listen, the advice that we're trying to give is if you're not very good. You think you're a good debater. You're just not very good at it, right? You talk in circles. I will give you some credit. You are a lot more calm than you are normally, which is the reason that I haven't brought you up in months because you act like a child when you do this. So how about this? Just read the indictments. Read them. Come back and say, facts, I've read the indictment and I have some questions. That way we can have an adult conversation. But you don't want to do that. I don't understand. Anyway, sorry, Rusty.
No, I think even if, and I won't accuse Jeff of this specifically, but people who argue like him, even if they do read the indictments, they'll play stupid through the entire conversation and say, "Oh, that's not what it says," or that that's not right. That can't be proven. This is a lie.
Yep.
It's. I mean, I know we can only reach one or two, maybe, out of the millions, but it's just frustrating that they can't even argue correctly.
I know. Hey, Chris.
Hey, man. Jesus Christ. You pick some winners.
He picked
Every
me.
single time, you do not disappoint, sir. Every time I stumble into your live, there's a clusterfuck amidst.
Well, I apologize to the chat. I don't normally give people that much space, but I figured it was an opportunity. I thought
No,
maybe
no,
he'd change his
you know,
ways, but
sometimes you got to let them cook, man.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that irks me: it's it's the reaching, it's the rationale. Even Donald Trump's yet to be paid legal team, and who knows if they will be, has never, and even he himself has never submitted the argument, well, maybe he didn't know what was in the boxes.
Right.
What are you, the Trump whisperer? If he's not making that argument and his lawyers aren't making that argument, how can you sit there with a presumably straight face and make an argument like that on behalf of somebody who hasn't, with a legal team, some of them indicted, some of them in jail, who has never made that argument?
Right. I mean, you guys would agree. I mean, we see this often, right? Where it's everybody else is responsible except for Trump. So it's Trump's lawyers for signing the statements. It's Trump's guys for moving the boxes. It's NARA. It's the DOJ. It's the taxi cab driver. It's the guy that cleans the golf clubs. It's the gopher killer, unaliver. Sorry, TikTok, educational purposes only. It's everybody. It's the ice cream maker. It's everybody.
It's Colonel
Trump.
Mustard in the library with the fucking candlestick.
Correct.
And who makes those very same arguments on a daily basis? Toddlers.
True.
Toddlers.
So true.
It's everybody's fault but them. Everybody else.
That motherfucker made every argument, but do you know the Muffin Man?
The Muffin Man?
The Muffin Man!
Oh, yeah, I know the Muffin Man. Lives on Drury Lane? That guy?
Oh.
Total douche.
No, she's married to the Muffin Man.
Oh, my God.
That they could have made that movie they could have made that entire movie that, and I would have watched it for an hour and a half.
Yeah. That live will be posted on YouTube tomorrow, friends. This live will be posted on YouTube tomorrow. If you need some psychotherapy, or if you just want to rage quit and bang your head against the wall, feel free. Links in my bio.
But it's the same rationale that says, oh, well, January 6th was fake, and it was Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And every time I hear that explanation, it just dumbs down the air in the room, because it devolves the entire event basically to a Scooby-Doo gag, right?
Pretty much.
Basically what you're saying is that all the Trump followers were at the ellipse, and then they were told to march down to the Capitol. And Fred and Scooby were down there with big signs with arrows on them that pointed at the Jefferson Memorial that said Capitol this way. Never mind that at the end of the National Mall, you can literally see the Capitol. No, the sign said Capitol this way, pointing to the Jefferson Monument. The crowd at the ellipse all took the sign and took a right towards the Jefferson Monument, thinking it was the Capitol. And then Antifa and Black Lives Matter all replaced them and marched on the Capitol.
Gee, Scoob, let's go through this door. Let's go spread shit in the walls of the Capitol, Scoob.
Let's see who this is. Old man Smithers, and I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you pesky kids.
It's so true. Gen X Unite.
You know, I'm every time I hear about these mass conspiracies between Black Lives Matter and Antifa and what the hell, throw in George Soros. Did
you get your check, Rusty? Chris, you guys get your checks?
No, I got another IOU.
God damn it.
I know. But
I'm still waiting on my check, but I'm still reliably waiting on my check, as opposed to working for Donald Trump, because I know I would never get that.
Good call.
Well, apparently I still have to claim it on my taxes, even though I haven't got the check yet. So
damn it.
I know. But every time I hear about these conspiracies, and then, of course, the giant mass conspiracy to defraud the election, I ask, have you ever organized a pickup game of basketball?
Many.
Has it ever gone 100% right?
Hell no.
Of course not. And if this massive conspiracy happened, why has no one squealed? Versus on the Trump side, everyone's squealing.
Yeah.
Yep, it can't be a witch hunt if it's your own flying monkeys that are flipping on you. But the other side of that, is that they're still making those ridiculous ass opposing arguments. Well, Joe Biden doesn't know where he is. Joe Biden hid in his basement the entire election. On the other hand, out the other side of their mouth, Joe Biden is a diabolical genius who stole an election. So either he's a withered old man hiding in his basement who doesn't know where he is, or he's a diabolical ninja who stole an election without so much of a trace or a piece of evidence that anybody has ever been able to bring in front of a judge. He's either Lex Luthor or he's Otis. You got to pick one.
Yeah. And I love when I've asked, well, okay, if it was Antifa and it was Black Lives Matter, don't they want Joe Biden to be inaugurated? Well, yeah. Well, then why would they try to stop it? To make MAGA look bad. I'm thinking all they got to do is let you mouth breathers fucking talk.
Yeah. Pretty much.
They don't have to make you look bad. You already look bad.
You know what I did? I am Antifa, and you know what I did that day? I stayed my ass at home. And I just watched it all unfucking fold. Which is probably what most of us were doing, because we sure as fuck weren't there.
Correct.
Oh, and hey, MAGA, by the way, I'm Antifa. And if your giant orange weasel teats thinks he's going to run this country, you just fucking wait. If he thinks he's going to be a fascist, strap in. If you think that was Antifa,
educational purposes only, TikTok.
Yes, educational purposes only. We will demonstrate the very definition of anti-fascist.
Correct.
And another thing is...
On that point, hang on one second, guys. TikTok is our intention during this live broadcast to only provide fact-based information to the absolute best of our ability. We strive to never spread misinformation or to platform those that do. Opinions of our guests or commenters, Rusty, are theirs and theirs alone and do not reflect those of the hosts. Hate speech is not allowed, and we are diligent about policing it. This platform is for educational purposes only. Sorry, I had to throw you some shade there.
That said, hyperbolically speaking, yes, we all sat there on January 6th and watched that shit unfold in horror, in real time, in front of Iran, Iraq, Russia, God, and everybody. And yet we can't even agree on what it is we fucking saw. But I will say this, hyperbolically speaking, that is exactly what happens when you let Cobra Commander be president and then fucking fire him.
Now, Chris, you said hyperbolic twice, and you know that makes MAGAs cry.
Which was my intent.
It's more than two syllables. Syllable in MAGA would be like the cat would be two. Well, bitch face would be two syllables.
Well, I know they think hyperbolic means really fast bollock.
Bollocks. Hyperbolics. Yeah, so I don't have anybody in the box right now, guys. So what's on your mind? Anything in particular? What happened to Anthony? He just bailed.
I actually had just tried to call Nikki. I know you're down in the chat, Nikki. That video I did earlier about that mouth-breathing truck driver,
Ooh.
His response, because the first thing I said is, by the way, Nikki is not short for Nicholas. He posted a video showing that Nikki is short for Nicholas. No, not in this case, you dumb fucking wiener. God.
So here's a question for you guys. So, I mentioned this earlier, another example of how our judicial system favors rich white men. Thoughts on again, just level set for people catching up, decision today by the appeals court in New York to lower the bond from 464 down to 175 for Trump, and he's got 10 days to pay it. Thoughts from either one of you? Rusty, why don't you go first?
I am disappointed but not surprised. There's a reason they call him the Teflon Don. Mm-hmm. Somehow he keeps getting away with shit. And Frenny Mag is in the chat. No, it's not because he's in the right. He still has to pay something. He's still on the hook, but they've lowered the bond so he can, and it's not lowering the bond so that's all he owes. It's so that he can appeal. So
No, actually,
no.
no. So we learned this from Legal Dad today. The reason the bond is in place so that Letitia James can't start seizing his property. That's the specific. He's already appealing it. And the specifics around, because as of midnight tonight, if he hadn't posted anything, she could literally start seizing his property. And because the appeals court was not transparent in their ruling, there's been some conjecture that the reason that they did that is because if he had to turn over that much money without secured bonds, whatever cash he had, the Trump org would be out of business. And perhaps they did that to protect the creditors, to protect employees. So the appeal was already happening. This was literally to prevent her from seizing property.
Well, I would take the very conservative Republican stance of, well, if you can't afford it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can't afford to pay this ridiculous amount of money, hey, here's an idea: stop defaming people, stop committing fraud. You're on the hook for it because a jury found you liable, at least in the E. Jean Carroll case, and your attorneys were dumb enough to say, hey, let's do this by bench for the fraud case.
Right.
And so, that's on you, pal.
Mm-hmm.
Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Go get a second job. Work harder.
Yeah, they're always looking for people to pick apples. The agriculture industry could use maybe you could pick some pumpkins. You could match your skin tone.
Absolutely. He might be expert at that.
Totally. Chris, your thoughts on that ruling?
Well, a couple of different things. I want a couple of pieces of housekeeping first. First of all, Jeff, if you're still within the sound of my voice, it is important that you understand that the art of debate does not constitute, or winning one, does not constitute your deciding to challenge somebody to a game of chess, and after their opening move, dry humping the board and then saying that you won. Scooting around in a circle, literally going, Mo, Larry, cheese, woo, 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 is not a win. It's performative, it's entertaining, largely in black and white, but not a win. That said, in regards to this reduction in bond, let's be clear about something. If he wasn't who he is, and I don't mean an ex-president necessarily, but if he wasn't who he is, this would not be a thing.
Agreed.
Right? After having done the things that he's done, for which he has been largely found either adjudicated responsible or found guilty, because his lawyers were stupid enough to check a box that said, hey, let's have a bench trial, and then bitching and moaning on the courthouse steps about how he didn't have a jury. Well, whose fucking fault was that? It's ridiculous that he would later have his bond reduced because he claims out one side of his mouth that he can't come up with the money, or his lawyers claim out of one side of their mouths that he can't come up with the money, while he's all over Truth Social talking about how he's got it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
If he wasn't who he is, given that, and this is another thing that I'm reflecting back on Jeff with, well, maybe he didn't know he took it. Donald Trump purposely took a cubic fuck ton of classified documents with him on his last day of work. There's no way he didn't know he did it. He hasn't even claimed that he didn't know he did it. Correct. And I'll use myself as an example. I've had like 4 to 5 different levels of clearance in my life. If I had done an iota of what he's done, I would be under Gitmo right now in car battery drawers. So this whole thing about, understand, most of these people don't believe he's in the right. They just want to see him beat the rap. They know he's wrong. They just want to own the libs and see him beat the rap, in the same vein as they cheered on Billy the Kid, in the same vein as they cheered on John Dillinger. They know he's in the wrong. They know he's guilty. Hell, he's confessed to 98% of shit he's done.
That's a good point. I think we've talked about this before. The mindset, and we're going to be doing a live within the next couple weeks with an expert in conflict resolution. So the topic will be about life after MAGA, and I think part of the illusion or the allure of Trump is that MAGA doesn't necessarily want to be him, but they want to have what he has. They want to have the jet. They want to have the condos. They want to have the golf courses. They want to have that. So they feel this is my opinion, not rooted in fact, just my opinion, my belief on this, because I talked to quite a few of these folks, as you guys know, that their support and like full throated defense of him is protecting what they value, the delusion of grandeur, in a strange sort of twisted way, if that makes sense to you guys.
Be fair though, it's not even that they want what he has. They know they're not going to get that. They believe that he is their champion, and what he has, he has. That's immaterial. I don't think anybody really wants a golden shitter, but what they see in him is an emblematic force that amplifies their ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Stuff that would ordinarily and for decades actually has progressively had them more and more marginalized. If you want to be a racist asshole, you don't get invited to Thanksgiving dinner all that often. If you want to be homophobic or if you want to be transphobic, you don't really get invited to the picnics. You know what I mean? And bit by bit, that was a thing until Obama came along, and then they started to get more boisterous, but they didn't have leadership, right? They started to come out of the woodwork, and they started to be more pronounced about their issues, but they didn't have leadership until they latched on to Donald Trump, who gave them tacit official permission to be the assholes that they are out in public, which the preceding decades had kind of forced them to lock down a little bit more if they wanted to be societally included. Now they're off the leash. And they enjoy that. To them, that is freedom. I always wondered why it is whenever people who are marginalized get recognized and get, their rights, cemented, why it is certain people act as if they lost something. It's not like rights are finite. It's not like, there's only so many rights, and if you give them out to everybody, you're going to run out, right? And what I discovered is, after carefully examining it, is that they have lost something. They lost the right to treat people like garbage. They lost the right to call black folks the N-word. They lost the right to call gay people the F-word. They lost the right to victimize, people of color across the marginalized spectrum. And that's what they feel that they've lost. So when you hear them talking about, we want to take our country back, that's what they mean. They want the right to treat certain people that they don't like because of X like garbage. And the more those people are legitimized or codified, or have their rights codified, the less of an opportunity they have to do it. And they feel as if they're losing control or the ability to do that.
That's a good perspective. The cousin Rusty, and I'm going to mute you, Chris, because you got a little. You did it. We've talked about this about their thirst for suffering, which is why they sort of default oftentimes to these, these insults when the conversation doesn't go well. Right, Rusty? I mean, we've seen that a million times about how they that's where they lean into when things don't go their way.
Well, it's this kink for cruelty. They want to be cruel. First, Chris, that analogy of the debate and the chessboard, I am so stealing that. That was genius.
Me too. Put that one down.
You want to play chess and then the guy dry humps it. I'm in. But no, you're absolutely right. It is the one thing that they have lost, and they still have the right to call people names. They still have the right to be horrible individuals. What they've lost is the fear of repercussions. Repercussions are now much more prevalent. They are not getting away with it as easy as they used to. I certainly think tools like the internet have helped that. I mean, we see, all these creators who track down people who are being horrible, and they used to be able to get away with that stuff, and now they're not. And they think they've lost a right. Well, no, you are now just suffering the repercussions of your actions and your words that you were never suffering before. And that's something that should always have been happening. And now that it is, they feel like, oh, I'm losing my, you can't lose a right to another person if you're all supposed to have the same right. Now, I freely admit that people weren't able to exercise a lot of those rights. The BIPOC community, the LGBTQIA plus community weren't able to exercise those rights because of oppression and systemic oppression. And now that seems to be tiny little baby steps at a time getting chipped away, angry white guys feel like they're now oppressed. I love when I hear them say, oh, the most oppressed group in America now are white men. Fuck you. I'm one of you. And
Tell us how you really feel.
I've gotten away with murder, and I know a big chunk of it is, because I'm a white dude. Yeah. And I shouldn't have, and yet I did. But, when people say, oh, show me white privilege, I'm right here. Right here. I've gotten away with all kinds of crap, especially in my youth when I did evil things. I don't do that anymore. I'm a sweetheart now. But I got away with stuff because I was a white kid and didn't know it at the time. Yeah. Didn't realize that's why I was getting away with it. I thought I was getting away with it because I was cool and charming. Nope. That's why I was getting away with it. And it's taken me to being in my 50s and looking back and going, oh, that's what was happening.
Yeah, we see that fragility all the time. I mean, somebody just mentioned this in the comment. We saw white privilege today. We sure did. When you get a bond fine reduced by $300 million roughly. I absolutely grew up with white privilege without even realizing it. It doesn't mean that my life wasn't challenging. Doesn't mean that it wasn't difficult. Doesn't mean I didn't work hard. Doesn't mean I had obstacles in my way. But I never had to face the challenges that Chris had to face.
Right.
Because I wasn't denied things because of the color of my skin or because of my name or because of where I grew up, my zip code. I mean, that's people who hear that get so triggered by that. It doesn't mean that, look, end of the day, if you grew up middle class or poor, which I did, doesn't mean it wasn't hard. It just, there weren't obstacles put in front of us because of what we looked like.
I'll give you a prime example of this, and I pointed this out to somebody last
Or your gender. Thank you for saying that. Sorry.
Yeah. There's been decades of bitching and moaning about affirmative action, right? Where people who do it consider it something extra that black people get. Never mind that the number one recipient and beneficiary of affirmative action in this country happen to be white women. But that's beside the point. They feel as if it was something extra we were given. You guys have always had affirmative action. It is literally inscribed in the Constitution. It is so part of the DNA of this country, as a matter of fact, for white men to have, that it didn't even need a special name. It's just there.
True.
The only thing that affirmative action did for us is that it leveled the playing field to a degree where we could actually competitively go about our lives. But it's just a provision that is there to bring us up to a level that white men are born into in this country and has been inscribed into the annals of the Constitution ever since everybody from Richard Henry Lee to Thomas Jefferson put their quills to that particular piece of parchment. So it's not something extra that we were given. It was something we should have had in the first place, except, for that pesky little institution that they fought that war over. Which, to be fair, is also a misnomer, because the South fought the war over slavery. The North fought the war to maintain the Union. You guys, we didn't
Fair.
actually fight a war over slavery,
Fair.
but they were really upset about it.
Absolutely. I'm often reminded of there's a cartoon, and it's three kids trying to look over a fence to watch a baseball game. And there's two panels. One panel says equality.
Yeah.
And these are kids of different heights, and they're all standing on the same size box. And only one kid is able to look over the fence. And then the other, I think, says fairness. And the boxes are different heights, so all the kids can look over the fence. And, when you break it down that simple, you would think even the mouth breathers could figure that out. But apparently not. But yeah,
it's the equity versus equality. We see that
equity. That's it. Equity versus equality. Yes.
Yep.
That's it. And there are so many people of my particular melanin level that are terrified of what will happen if people of color, the LGBTQI plus community, pick a marginalized group, suddenly is empowered. And I've heard the phrase before: be glad they want equality and not revenge. And I'm there. Yes, I'm with you there.
You know something. Here's the thing, and it's a unique. I believe it to be a uniquely American thing. I've been to several different countries, but I believe this to be a uniquely American thing. In how we are taught as children is not to do this, but as we get older, it becomes this thing that institutionally almost we are taught to do. We have an annoying habit of being in some way societally encouraged to punch down. Right? Because, for instance, let's look at the economics of the situation as we know it, right? Most of the quote unquote inflation that we're dealing with right now is not really inflation, it's price gouging. Especially in the food areas where they raised the prices because of inflation and then just fucking left them there while touting how much money they're making. But we're not punching up, right? Not by and large. A great percentage of us are, but not by and large. We instead punch down at the single mom. We card stalk a single mom in the store, looking to see if she's using a WIC card to pay for her groceries. And then we start looking through her grocery card to see what's in the fucking grocery card, to bitch and moan about what's in the grocery card and how we feel entitled to do a running commentary in the fucking grocery line about what's in this woman's grocery card.
We see this from the right. It's the constant defense of corporations who are the biggest recipients of welfare in our country through tax cuts and subsidies and the whole 9 yards. So it's okay for them to take advantage of the system that works for them. But God forbid a single mother or a single father needing to use WIC or food stamps or whatever it might be to feed their family, they become scapegoats. They become classified as lazy or mooching off the system. I mean, that's the narrative that, I don't know how we defeat that, because once again, it becomes scapegoating.
That's why we punch down at immigrants, right? Okay, so there's a massive flood of immigrants coming over the border. Okay, well, first of all, we spent like 50 years destabilizing countries south of the border. So that's the reason why they're headed this way. Because in this hemisphere versus, say, the other hemisphere, in the opposite hemisphere, if we screw with the political systems over there, when they come here, they come in to kill us.
Right.
When we do it over in this hemisphere, they come here for a piece of the dream.
And that's
I think one is more constructive than the other.
Yeah, I think one is stabilization is not talked about nearly enough.
Right. And I think that one is actually more constructive than the other, especially since immigrants come here and there's time, maybe they're here and maybe they get sent back, or maybe they're here and they stay and they eventually become citizens. But in that interim, they're working in the system and they're paying taxes, and that's free money. So I'm not even understanding that. Plus, when DeSantis managed to run all of the migrant workers out of Florida, I didn't see a whole bunch of white boys or even black people out there in the fields trying to pick lettuce. So
Nope.
this is a net win for us to have these folks here doing the work that they do. But we are taught to punch down. So when we punch down, who do we punch at? People like immigrants, people like single moms or parents or what have you. Or if you want to go that route, the LGBTIA community, or
Any marginalized.
pick your personal, whatever personal issue you might have with whatever assails your ick factor or whatever.
Right.
These are the people we punch down at. We don't punch up at the corporations. We don't punch up at the oil companies.
Right.
I mean, the closest we come to punching up would be to punch up at the president of the United States, who doesn't own an egg farm, who doesn't own an oil company, who doesn't own Tyson Foods, or whoever else is overcharging you for whatever it is you think you should be able to buy for less. So my thing about it is, come out of the mindset where you think if you piss off the corporations, oh my Lord, they're going to run for the hills and we're going to be unemployed and we're going to make massa mad. Right? Stop that.
Yeah.
Because we pay for the stuff they make. And if we stop paying for the stuff that they make, then maybe they might get the message and price it down so that we might start buying it again.
There's an easier way to look at it. I hear you. There's an easier way to look at it, though. You can look at companies like, corporations exist in Norway, corporations exist in Sweden, corporations exist in these democratic socialist companies or countries, and yet the quality of life is some of the highest on earth. Their citizens make exceptional wages. They've got the best some of the best healthcare access in the world. They live longer. They're healthier. So in America, if all of a sudden we created scenarios where we were influential in their price gouging strategies, meaning that we passed legislations that wouldn't allow them to do things like that. People on the right in the echo chamber have convinced their voters that those companies will leave America. No. You think they're going to leave a country that has less regulations to go to countries that have more? No. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. And why is it that we become such, lack of a better term, slaves to corporations? That's the sad part about it. So what you're saying is exactly right, Chris. The people that are ripping us off the most, we always struggle, right, to try to find those common ground elements of our society and how we can all find a common ground. The common ground should be all of us down here in the dirt, small business owners, single parents, the middle class and the poor. Our argument, to your point, should be fighting up. It should be the corporations. It should be those should be the people that we should hate and despise the most. Because during COVID, we saw the biggest transfer of wealth in our nation's history, in world history. And the gap gets wider and wider and wider and wider. And it's out of control. And unless we're talking about massive economic overhaul, more regulations. Don't give, no more of this bullshit. Oh, big corporations are the employers. They're the ones that hire the most. Give me a fucking break. It's been 50 years. We've proven it doesn't work. Enough.
I heard somebody argue that, well, we shouldn't penalize somebody who came up with a good idea and made billions of dollars. He didn't come up with a good idea and make billions of dollars. He came up with a good idea and he hired a bunch of people who made him billions of dollars.
Right.
He didn't do that all by himself.
On the back of a $7 an hour part-time employee.
Yeah,
right. He didn't wake up one morning with a fucking light bulb over his head and started making it rain on him.
Right. Three quick points. One, I think for myself, one of the reasons why I try really hard not to punch down, when I was a kid and I was living in rural Kentucky, the first jobs I got as a Kentuckian, junior high school kid, was working on farms. And if you've ever hauled hay in the summer
Done it.
or cut tobacco in August, they are the worst fucking jobs in the world.
Brutal.
And as a kid, you were making bank. You were making way more money than you would
Cash too.
Oh yeah, cash, and hand it right to you. And I saved about 14 cents, but the rest of it, I pissed it away. But I understood how hard I was working just in those seasonal jobs. And so now living in California, anytime I drive past a strawberry field and I see a whole bunch of immigrant workers busting their ass in the strawberry field, I have nothing but respect for those people. And yeah, I don't want to ever do that again. That was horrible.
Yep.
It was a terrible job. And if somebody's willing to do that to feed their families, more power to them. In fact, let's do everything we can to make it as good for them as we possibly can. They're the people who are feeding us. So what's wrong with trying to take care of them?
I learned that lesson too. So I remember I was sort of just kind of directionless in college, and I couldn't really figure shit out, and was thinking about taking some time off. And my dad said, "No, you're paying for this, so you're gonna figure this out." And I remember going to work at this furniture maker in southern Vermont, and it was the Christmas break, so I had 5.5 weeks, and I worked pretty much every day to earn as much money as I could to pay my way. And they had people that had been working there for 30 odd years, right? A typical manufacturing job. And my job was, as the wood would come off the back of the truck, it would go onto this wheel that was 5.5 feet long, and it would turn like in 10-degree increments. We used to call it the wheel of frustration. And my job was to just pull, as this guy would chop this wood into various lengths, I would just put it in the appropriate bins. I did it every day, 7 to 10 hours a day to get as much overtime. I was absolutely exhausted. The most difficult job I've ever had. I learned the value of hard work. I've always been a hard worker, but I learned that people do this for 30 years. For 30 years, the people that are committed to these things, whether it just be a good paying job, appreciate blue collar, whatever it might be, whatever the reason was, these are the people that keep our society going, and yet we constantly mock them. We constantly are looking for ways to steal from them so that the furniture that was being made could sell for $3,000 for a person in Connecticut or New Hampshire, because we blame everything in New England on Connecticut, New Hampshire. Different story. But to our point, right? It's the people that are taking advantage of those workers, to Chris's analogy, the ones that are doing the work for that inventor to become a billionaire. It's upside down. The whole system, late stage capitalism, no doubt. We're in it. And people just don't see it. Don't see it.
Well, and I remember one of the many things that Obama caught hell for, almost as much as the tan suit controversy, was when he was talking about corporations, and when he had said, "You didn't build this," and I understood what he meant. It's, you didn't build it alone. And all these right wingers and business people, I built my business. The fuck you did. Did you build the road? Did you build the national infrastructure that allowed your business to flourish? No, you did not. We built that for you.
Correct.
We, the American people, through our taxation, built that infrastructure for you.
Socialism, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. For you to flourish. And unless you're a one-man band, no, you hired employees. You hired professionals to come in and build this idea of yours. No one is an island. They're just not. Even when I owned my own business, and it was just me and my business partner, we used and utilized people who were better than us at our business, so we could learn, and so it wasn't just us. We made a lot of mistakes and we had a lot of successes, but it wasn't just the two of us. We knew that from day one. But this idea that if corporations aren't making 5% growth a year, that they're failing. That never used to be that way. If corporations were making 1 or 2% a year,
that was great.
They were thrilled. And now it's minimum 5, minimum 6.
Yeah, the hyper growth model that we've unfortunately
Absolutely.
accepted. Yep.
Yep. And how do they do that? They do that by sucking it out of the people purchasing their product, and they don't understand the math ain't gonna math much longer.
No.
And yeah, if they turned the US into an economically depressed country, yeah, maybe they'll move somewhere else. Yeah, maybe they'll find a place that's friendlier and get in there and try to get those regulations lowered. And I did a video the other day about regulations. And no, we need more. We absolutely need more. This idea that, well, you deregulate, it's better for business. No, it's better for criminal activity. It's better for robbery, not for business itself.
And of course, better for workplace injuries, and better for a lack of workforce because you've allowed your machinery to fall off on the PMS schedule, and it's hurt people who can't sue you, who you don't feel the need to take care of, and so they're off work, and you fire them, and then you hire somebody else who similarly will likely be injured by the same machine. So
Right. Yeah, I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was about to say there's the old saying: if you think you're really important to your company, see how long it takes them to replace you.
Yeah.
At about 10 minutes.
People think of the expendable mindset, right? I mean, we have AI now on the horizon, and we have no one's expendable, but our society, it makes it very clear. And I'm gonna weave a web here back to Trump because everything points back to them. We talked about this earlier about the admiration that his supporters have for them. The people that need an overhaul to the system the most are the ones that tend to be the most loyal sycophants to him, meaning that they're the ones that are disadvantaged the most by his economic policies, by his rhetoric, by his, sort of bending a knee to corporations and his own wealth. They're the ones that suffer the most. We already know that red states, are recipients of blue states' tax dollars from a subsidies perspective. We know that red states are failing in education. We know that red states are failing in healthcare. We know that red states are failing in the civil and human rights. And yet, that's the representative of the party, the person who personifies all those things. And yet, he's their leader. It's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling. They'll never understand it. Never.
No, and I've said it before, and I'm more than happy to say it again to any conservatives, MAGA, Republicans, whatever in the box. Taxes are patriotic. Taxes are the way we can all participate in making our country flourish and be better. Now, we can argue tax policy all day long, and that's a fair argument to have.
Yeah.
But this idea, when I hear people say taxes are theft, no, you driving on a road for free is theft. Taxes are patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
So get off your high horse. And then when they hear, billionaires are getting these big tax breaks, somehow in their head, that's a win. Ha! They got the system. They beat the system. Yeah, and who's going to suffer for it? The rest of them.
So,
hey, Dave.
It's the same thing that happens when somebody skips out on a bill at the restaurant. If you don't believe that the cost of that bill is then incrementally spread across the bill of everybody else who stayed in the restaurant to eat and is going to pay their bill, you are horribly mistaken.
Just like insurance.
That is what happens. And when billionaires do not pay, but I think what was he paid like $7 in tax one year?
Yeah.
Who do you think gets stuck with the big bill?
It's the same model for healthcare. So people are going to the emergency room because they don't have insurance, they can't afford the bill, and then it gets spread out over the rest of us, which is one of the major driving costs behind it. Welcome, Dave. We're just talking about blowing up the system and starting from scratch.
I never met Chris before. How you doing, Chris? So
hey now.
It's funny
by the way, I did want to say something else.
Please do.
Uncle Rusty said that no man is an island in regards to his business. I'm a voiceover talent, so it is literally one man, one mic, one booth. This time it's personal.
Chris, you and I need to talk because I'm getting back into voiceovers. So, I just friended you, and
hold on. If you guys keep talking, the ladies in the chat are already expressing. So whatever it is that you're doing, fellas, By the way, this is my live. What the hell's going on here? Anyway,
Well,
whatever you're doing, boys, it's working.
I'm not doing the clown right now, and apparently he gets way more attention than I do. So I'm not sure how to take that, but
Take it well.
Take it well. Take it.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say that I am a fan of your work in both incarnations.
Oh, thank you. Did I ping you over from the clown
you
persona?
Did.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so yeah,
I sent you a message back.
Talk later. Yeah.
Good for you guys. I like that. David, welcome.
And hi. So it's funny you guys are talking about this because I had an aha moment this morning, which I'd like to share.
Please.
So I'm listening to MSNBC this morning while I'm in the shower, and they're talking about the thing they talk about a lot. Why do these people constantly keep voting against their best interests? Why do they keep doing it? What is the draw? And the theory is, that he makes his grievances their grievances. He constantly says things like, they're not only doing this to me, they're doing this to you. I thought about this for a minute, and then I had a little realization. They're all fucking wrong. The motivation is different, I believe. It's not because of grievances. It's because that's maybe 10, 15% of the population. Not all Republicans, not even all Donald Trump voters. We're talking about the hardcore MAGA who, despite everything, continue to stay with him. He is their fantasy. He is who they want to be. He is their aspiration. They want to be rich enough to be able to ignore everything, to be able to have a 757, to have big fucking buildings in major cities with his fucking name all over them. They want to be able to shit in the golden toilet. That is the draw. They want to have their own TV show.
We were talking about that earlier, and we sort of went around that a little bit. I mean,
I think that is the only logical motivation. This country has an obsession with celebrity, an obsession with wealth. If you notice, the ones
keep going, guys. I'll be right back.
Sure, the ones that are the most kind of obsessed, the red meat idiots are most obsessed with are the ones who are ostentatious. It's not the guy who owns Berkshire Hathaway, who was the richest man in the world for years, but lives in a tiny house in Idaho. It's Elon Musk. It's Donald Trump. Jeff Bezos, not as much because he stays out of the limelight. But this is who they want to be. And their fantasy is Trump. Trump is their perfect porn star. That is what they want. And now that they're...
I'm sorry. I kind of push back on that from the standpoint of, I don't think they want to be Trump. I think they see Trump as their avatar. He is their tangerine knight. He will take the slings and arrows. He can do it because he is Trump. And he's going to take the system and do yada, yada, blah, blah, yakety schmackety. And they just believe, they choose to believe, they see him as their avatar, right? I mean, I know a bunch of Christians. I'm a Christian, but I don't know anybody. I don't know a single Christian who actually wants to be Jesus Christ and hang from a cross. But we all love us some Jesus, right? We haven't done it. That is how they see him. They see him as the individual who is going to ride to their rescue and save them from the liberals and the commies or whoever else they're made to be afraid of this week. The brown people are coming. The brown people are coming. And here comes Trump. Oh, he's going to save us. They don't want to be him because I don't think they're stupid enough to believe that they ever could be him.
I think they do. I disagree.
I believe that they just place whatever he tells them to be afraid of on his metaphorical slopey shoulders, and they believe that he is the one who will fix it.
See, here's where I disagree. I'm sorry, Archie. Just here's where I disagree. I think that they do believe they can be that. It's the American dream, that bullshit story that's been fed to many of us not so much with people that look like Chris, but more to people that look like me and Rusty. That bullshit story that if you just put your, nose to the grindstone and work hard, you can be rich too. This is the shit that they legit believe. It's their fantasy. They could be smoking meth every day, have 3 teeth between 5 of them, but still believe that they can make it too. Whether it's lottery, whether it's I got this great idea for this app, or whatever the fuck fantasy land they live in. This, I believe, it's the only possible explanation that makes sense to me. Because all the other stuff, I get where you're coming from, Chris, and I get the whole idea of, he is their kind of their grievance magnet, but that's not enough. To follow this asshole through thick and thin, through 91, now 88 different charges over 4 jurisdictions, to follow him through being absolutely unmasked as a business fraud, and they still follow. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
See, okay, so I'm going to be Sweden. I think
Does that make me America and Chris Russia, or vice versa?
I think it's actually a insidious combination of both. And the example that I'll use, if you've ever seen, there's a documentary short Nancy Pelosi's granddaughter filmed in Arkansas, talking to Trump voters, and this was back in 16, and they're all talking about Jesus. They're all talking about religion, abortion, and the Republican Party being on their side, not understanding that they were pulled in during the Southern strategy because, oh, wait, now the South is fractured because, we dared to give black people rights.
Fake news, Southern strategy. Fake news.
Yeah, let's get those. Thanks. Thanks, Candace Owens. Let's get those disenfranchised.
Let's leave the unemployed out of this.
Well, yeah, right. Let's get those disenfranchised white evangelicals under the Republican tent, blow smoke up their skirt, and just keep getting them to vote against their best self-interest, because we'll talk about the religious boogeymen that keeps them engaged. And there was one interview I remember from that film that Pelosi did, where there was this guy in a ramshackled shack, no teeth, obviously unhealthy, and he was Republican, Trump, and very anti government assistance and whatnot. She said, wait a minute, you're on food stamps.
That's I've seen that. Wasn't that in Mississippi though, not Arkansas? I don't remember. I thought it was Mississippi, but it doesn't matter. I remember that specific thing.
But yeah, and he said, well, I need my food stamps. And this is a white dude. And she said, but don't you see that these Republican policies won't help you? And his immediate response was, but they could.
Exactly.
And she said, well, how? But they can.
When I'm rich, they'll help us.
Yeah, and he's holding on to this hope that Republican policies will trickle down to him. And so, yes, I think it is a combination of using religion and racism as a tool to then imbue them with the same idea you were talking about, Dave, that, if you work hard enough, you can be rich too. And combining this into this horrible stew that these knuckleheads just gobble up because they don't have the intellectual fortitude to step back for a second and go, this is bullshit. This is a con job. There's a sucker born every minute, and there's a rube that goes to carnivals.
And the thing about it is that it's a generational thing. I mean, it's a lot of it comes from just prior to the baby boom, where all of that was possible, right? Where FDR created the middle class, and then suburbs, and as such, people were able to, most people, at least at first, were able to use their GI Bill and forge a good life in a nuclear family, la da 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 da, for as long as that lasted. It's never quite Leave It to Beaver, but pretty close if you ignore the propaganda and just look at the.
You were awful hard on the Beaver last night.
That's what she said. But it's the thing about it is that as we have progressed, we have also evolved, and the meaning of family has evolved. And what conservatives, and what this is why they've fallen into this trap. This is one of those things that I've always had a slight envy of the Republican Party, but that envy, I also recognize that which I envy is also terrifying, is that unlike Democrats who, when we win, tend to blow a lot of political capital jockeying for position. Okay, now we've won, I want what I want, and this, that, and the other, and we get into this whole infighting thing.
Agreed.
Republicans tend to fall lockstep behind whoever happens to end up leader of their party.
No doubt.
And they do so with something of a unifying force. And it doesn't matter who that leader is. It might take a little bit longer. It took a little bit longer with, say, George W. Bush, and took decidedly longer with Donald Trump. But it happened. And the horror behind that has played out. What if that individual is solely and completely and absolutely unqualified to do this gig? They did it anyway, right? And this went where it went. And this is why, Joe ended up on a stage, told him to shut up, and stole his job, right?
I just got to say this, Bunny, stop it. Stop it.
Thank God, though, for Bunny's comment.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
Bunny's being a meanie to me.
You're right. You're right.
Chris,
I think part of it is, if we talk about what you're talking about, is like the birth of the middle class, right? It's when corporate tax rates were like 52, 55%, somewhere around there. The highest tax rate, individual tax rates, was like 75, 80%. No one was complaining. Corporations were still making money. The suburbs.
Eisenhower, I think the top taxes were like 90-some% or something, or 80.
Individuals, something like that. Yeah. So
it was I think it was anything over 400,000 was being taxed at over 80%.
Yeah, I think the individual tax rate was. I think I'm talking about corporate tax rates specifically, though. But people don't. So my point is that there's a model that existed that's not too long in our past, right? This is an example of what happens when the people who have, individuals and corporations, are taxed to invest in society. That's, again, when the middle class was created, when the suburbs were created, when interstate systems were created, when America was humming, quite frankly. I mean, we still had obvious issues with human rights, no doubt about that. But from an economic perspective, it was a little bit more balanced. And it doesn't mean that corporations weren't getting rich. Didn't mean that there weren't millionaires. There just weren't as many. It became that equity versus equality argument that we were having earlier about fairness. Obviously, women weren't treated well in the workplace. Persons of color weren't treated well in the first place. I'm not using that as an example of a great time in our history. Economically, it was more balanced to favor more people, I guess is what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense.
This was also the post-war era.
You take that also, and it's like, okay, so the economics of that situation were much more tilted towards the society.
Correct.
As opposed to being tilted towards the corporate interest.
The tax policy was tilted more towards society.
Exactly. And then Reagan comes in and he cuts the taxes. He decides he wants to go to do shadow wars south of the border. He wants to, to get rid of the fairness doctrine, which is what gives us people like Morton Downey Jr., Rush Limbaugh, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then everything starts to change, and conservatives draw their line, and they go over there with, this is a hell of a combination, Pat Robertson and Rush Limbaugh. I can't even see those two people in the same room together. Seriously. For whatever reason, but their ideologies somehow blend and mesh. It's crazy, but that's where they end up, and we end up over here, and and then we start generating billionaires while the general populace begins to suffer and suffer and suffer. Trickle down economics doesn't work, except that if you feel something trickling down, it's them pissing down your fucking back.
Pretty much. There's an interesting dichotomy. The average
Hang on one second,
American.
Dave. Please give the panelists, guys, for those of you who appreciate this conversation, because this has been incredibly informative, gentlemen. I want to thank all of you for doing this. So if you're interested in supporting these guys, please do so. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No problem. There's an interesting calculation. The average American CEO makes like 100 to 150 times more than their average worker, whereas in Europe, and Europe is our kind of the closest we have to our analog, the average CEO in Europe is making like 10 to 15 times what their average worker is making. And this, again, this is going to be a problem real quick, because for those of us who are historically minded, I urge everybody to take a look at the French Revolution. There's a certain point where the income inequality gets to the point where the peasants start revolting. And it's going to happen. This is the thing that I think a lot of European politicians, because they're so much closer to it, still remember, and a lot of U.S. politicians do not, because they've never had that. Even January 6th was kind of it wasn't that. It was a bunch of morons storming a building. It wasn't the fucking storming of the Bastille. But no country is immune to that. If you have enough of that income inequality, and if the masses are feeling more and more like they're getting fucked every which way, eventually they're going to look around and say, there are so many more of us than there are of them. We can do something about that. This is the origin of the French Revolution, the origin of the Russian Revolution.
That's the same thing.
I'm going to bring up something that I'm just going to hone in on something you said, because it reminded me of something of historical relevance. Sire, the peasants are revolting. You said it. They stink on ice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
History of the World, Part 2.
I've sent a couple of requests out to some women I've seen that are sitting in the chat. I would happy to expand the panel. I haven't gotten any requests in a little while, so I'm not trying to I know we're all devilishly handsome, and this has been a fascinating conversation, but we could use some class up here for sure. So the box is open.
I could go get the clown.
And here I am with a face for radio.
I am the prettiest. I am the meanest. I am. Nikki Mouse asked me a question. She wanted to know if Letitia James could in fact appeal today's reduction of Trump's bond, and the answer to that is I don't see why she couldn't. Whether she will or not is up to her. I don't know if she wants to waste the time, because one of the things that lowering of the bond did do was the appellate division said that he only has 6 months to perfect his appeal, and if he doesn't hit that goal, bond goes up, versus usually it's 9 months. So they did impose some limitations on it.
So these conversations, I think, are so critical. So I think the time that we spent on it, guys, I think is really necessary, because there's so many I'm not going to call it I guess I will call it that, lack of understanding about the basic principles of economics, and we've bounced around the thirst for why people still support Trump. So I'm going to use that as a segue. Coming up this Wednesday night, my co-host will be Diane, and we're going to have a conversation intentionally trying to target and or invite Republican women, MAGA women in particular, to try to find out why they still support Trump. And we're hoping to have conversations about that, because that's like the Loch Ness Monster to me. I don't get it. I don't understand it. After all this time, we know about MAGA men. We know Republican men who don't value and appreciate women. We understand that. So this is an area that I've been thinking about for a long long time. Diane's been doing some recon already. I've been doing a little bit of recon, so we have a lot of questions that we'll hopefully ask. So I want to extend this offer to anybody who's listening. I'll remind people again tomorrow night, this coming Wednesday, that will be the topic. We want to engage in those conversations. All are welcome to attend. I don't want to tell anybody that you can't. And I think the question then is also going to be also go to MAGA men to understand that if you have wives or daughters in particular, and how is it that you can look them in the eye and say that you voted for Donald Trump and then Republicans in general. So I didn't mean to detour the conversation. I just wanted to throw that plug out there.
Fine.
It's 8:40, guys. Don't see it have a lot of activity, so I want to give each of you an opportunity. So I might wrap up a little bit early tonight. I got some work to do, but I want to give each of you an opportunity to say whatever's on your mind. So why don't we start with Chris?
Greetings, folks. Excuse me while I turn the comments back on here. There we go. You know something? It's interesting that we live in a society that I grew up in. And I distinctly remember growing up with people, around people of all walks of life, who were more informed, more proactive about being informed, a more involved electorate, a more educated electorate. And they went out of their way to be that because it helped them to be constructively involved with shaping their society. And now I find myself surrounded by people who feel that it is admirable to not know what the fuck they're talking about. They consider, okay, there was a time in my life, perhaps you fellows remember, you all seem to be fellows of a certain age, Lord knows Pepperidge Farm remembers, when you had an opinion, it had to be a qualified and informed opinion. Now, you can have a general opinion about something that you don't know anything about, but you are always called out about it because you didn't take the time to actually inform yourself before blurting that out. And as a result, you tended to shy away from doing it unless you knew to some degree what you were talking about, or unless you qualified the fact that you didn't know what you were talking about but just felt a certain way before you opened your mouth. We live in a world now where just because some unwashed thought crossed your fucking mind, you are free to either blurt it out of your face with a camera pointed in it or let it fly off your thumbs as you quickly tap it out, regardless as to whether or not it's true, regardless as to whether or not you even know what you're talking about, regardless as to whether or not you know anything about the subject matter. It is so degraded, our ability to simply communicate with one another. It is so degraded, our ability to even agree on reality. Because somewhere along the way, someone convinced people that just because something popped into their head, they could embrace and dry hump it as if it were reality in lieu of all evidence to the contrary. And how do you have a discussion? How do we as a society progress if we can't even communicate with each other based upon a solid joint level of information? It's unseemly. It's disheartening.
It's like we've had this conversation before. It's about when did it become a bad thing to be smart or well informed or to be educated? It becomes like you're like the pariah to many in society because you're educated. I'm proud of my education. I busted my ass to get it, and I'll never apologize for it. It doesn't mean I use it as a means to be superior. That's not the goal. But I think being informed allows you, thank you, allows you to critically think. And we all know from many conversations we've all had with people, that's the missing element,
It's
unwillingness
not.
to critically think. So
It's
Thank you,
not
Chris.
the
And,
educated.
but the byproduct of that is that we hire people, i.e., politicians, who reflect that mindset. How else do you explain Marjorie Taylor Greene, a woman who I am confident has been thrown out of no less than 3 PTA meetings? How else do you explain Lauren Boebert, the GED trifecta who's given out civics lessons talking about we're not a democracy while completely dismissing the fact that, yes, we are a constitutional republic that runs on the vibrant fuel of Jeffersonian democracy?
We're not a democracy, but I got elected.
Yeah, but Boebert's
Exactly.
but Boebert's handy. Though.
Dude, ooh, that was messy. That was messy.
I'm just gonna say this real quick, just to Chris's point. I don't think it's all 4 of us are educated. I'm gonna say I don't think it's our superiority complex. I think it's the uneducated's inferiority complex. They look at people who hold degrees and they don't as, oh, those people must be thinking that they're better than me. I don't think about anybody being better than me, and I don't know anybody who's gone to college that does. We just go about our fucking day.
Right. That's right.
And I accept that some people are better at me at a lot of different things.
Same here.
And the only person I truly compete against on a day-to-day basis is me.
Correct.
So if I can wake up more pain-free than I was yesterday, I'm going to do that. If I can get to work earlier than I got to work yesterday, I'm going to do that. If I can get a voiceover done and I can get it processed and I can get that audition in and get that gig, if I didn't yesterday, then that is a win to me. And none of that has, I mean, some of it has something to do with other people, but I don't take it personally if I don't get X, Y, or Z done. It's not, I don't feel animosity towards people like that, that Spanish person took my job or something like that. I mean, I don't have that level of grievance in my life, maybe because I live alone, and therefore, if anything really goes wrong in my day-to-day, moment-to-moment life, I'm probably responsible for it myself. If I trip and fall on something on my fucking floor, I'm the guy who put it there. Not some immigrant or not.
Damn you,
no immigrant busted in my house and put my chair in the middle of the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Thank
Ow,
you, Chris.
my back hurts. Thanks, Obama.
That's right. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Obama.
Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that. David.
I just want to remind everybody that because we're talking about the lack of brains, that the stupid comes from all sides. And I'm gonna give you an example. I have a friend who is an appellate attorney. All he does is appeals. And he got a phone call. He got a voicemail today because some moron thought he wasn't an appellate attorney, that he was the appellate court, specifically the appellate court that lowered the bond to $175 million. And this person is from our political side, hates Trump with a passion, and he left a 2-minute voicemail going on about, you motherfuckers, how dare you lower his bond. And it was, the amount, I mean, I smelled stupid through my phone because he sent me the voicemail. He sent me the audio clip. And I swear, I think that my phone, like some circuits just went, and I lost an IQ point or two just listening to this constant stream of ill-educated, non-understanding stupidity, not only about they really thought they were leaving this message for the appellate court and that some judge would actually hear it. But it's coming from all sides, people. Yes, they are much louder on the right. They are ostensibly, more of them are really stupid on the right, but do not think that the uneducated is only one side. This country, we were talking about uneducated people. This country needs a shot in the arm of education. Agreed. More than anything else. Civics. Agreed. Start with fucking civics.
Overfund public education.
Yes. Start with teaching people how their government works. Why things go the way they go. I have conversations on this app regularly with people who don't understand the basics of how a law is made, despite Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, there is an entire
scary.
generation of people who weren't exposed to Schoolhouse Rock. I learned this recently, because not recently, because I was a paraprofessional, so I had to introduce entire generation of kids to Schoolhouse Rock who had never seen it, because apparently they locked it in the Disney vaults for whatever amount of time. So we grew up on Schoolhouse Rock, and we take it for granted that other kids did, but there is at least 2 or 3 generations that didn't, and it shows.
I have the DVDs, bought it for my kids. Anything else, Dave?
No, I'm good.
Rusty.
Well, when it comes to that word education, I get a little twitchy about it. Some of the smartest people I know that I've ever known in my life didn't even have a high school diploma. And some of the dumbest sons of bitches I know had advanced degrees. And so I look at, certainly the whatever your sheepskin says gives me a clue, but when you open your mouth and you start to start talking or take some sort of action, that gives me a better idea of how smart you are, or whether or not your education is purely academic or you've learned things from experience. And neither one is wrong, and hopefully we should have as much of a combination of the two as possible. But I agree with the idea that education has now become a new boogeyman, and smart people are looked down upon. And when you hear the right talk about the intellectual elite, oh, you mean smart people?
Yeah.
We don't want the intellectual elite. Oh, you don't want smart people. You want a bunch of just troglodytes walking around making the decisions. I know I've said this to Fax before in the past. I remember the days when there were a couple of idiots in the neighborhood, and you knew they were idiots, and you gave them something shiny to play with and put them in a corner. And then came the internet, and the idiots can talk to each other. And then they become a voting bloc. And then every wild bullshit conspiracy out there, they're buying into it hook, line, and sinker, and they're loud. And it seems like they feel like they're the majority. We know they're not. But what we have to do is make sure our people, and by our people, I mean those of us who have 2 brain cells that'll bang together, go out and vote. Don't sit on the sideline. I know as a much younger man, I thought my vote didn't count. I thought, what's the point? They've already decided this stuff. And it took me to my mid-20s before I realized, oh, no, wait, I at least want a say in the matter. And that is so unbelievably important. And so for any young people that are listening that feel dissuaded by the political climb and right versus left, and oh, they're both the same. No, they're fucking not. And you've got to get out and have your voice heard. You just do. And when we're staring at a guy who says he wants to be a dictator, says it, and then for his people to go, oh, you don't understand his sense of humor. First of all, he doesn't have one. Number one. Number two, I understand humor. He ain't funny. He couldn't tell a joke to save his damn life. So, but you fucking mouth breathers think he's hilarious and he's awesome and Jesus loves him and whatever else goes on in your tiny little heads. I know. I mean, if you guys have seen anything I've done, I can be a little insulting, just a little bit. And I've gotten to the point where I don't care. I don't care what they have to say anymore. I don't care what webs of conspiracy and bullshit they have to go through. That guy you had on earlier, Fax, Jeff, I thought he was going to break his back with the gymnastics he was trying to pull off to make his argument make sense. I'm done with them. They're gum on my shoe. I don't care. We have to plod forward. And I understand a society can only go as fast as the dumbest people in that society. I get it. But we can't let them keep dragging us behind. It's time to pull the pin on the caboose. Let them go. We got to move ahead. You know, I'm old enough to remember we were supposed to have flying cars and
hoverboards.
Yeah, it's that we're supposed to have all this cool shit by the year 2000. That hadn't happened yet.
And have you seen how some of these people drive? Because I've seen it down low in a smart car, and I've seen it up high in a semi. And none of these people should be allowed should even be allowed in a passenger seat of a flying car.
Oh,
Rusty, Rusty. I just want to tell all of us that we are showing our age. We're all about 50. And here's the thing that a lot of
I'll be 60 this year.
That's fine. What I'm saying is this country has been idiocracy much longer than it hasn't. And that's the thing. When we came up in the 70s. We came up in the 60s in case of you, because you're an old fuck. But, we came up right during the height of the Cold War, when beating the Russians with missiles, with brain power, with all this stuff was a big deal. But that wasn't cool until after World War II. Prior to World War II, it was the city slicker, know everything versus the good, hardy farmer. And this is what the right has consistently been doing even after that. But this is where this country has always been. We had a short break when we had an existential threat with nuclear missiles on the other side of the world. And at that point, it was like, we need smart people because we need to build rockets, and we need to build this, and we need to build that, and we need to beat the Russians. But then
it was unifying.
Then that ended.
To the moon.
That ended, and idiocracy came back with a fucking vengeance. And then, of course, social media catapulted it to stratosphere because, as you said, one of you, maybe both of you, the idiots learned how to talk to each other. They created communities of stupid, and they just, they say we're an echo chamber because we only have one opinion. Our opinion is based on reality. Their opinion is based on whatever shit came out of their ass the day before.
Now but back to Chris's point, they're fabulous on that side of getting behind a leader. They are super
Except
good
for
at
now. Except for now. I'm watching them implode right now because, again, there's only so much crazy.
Set up straight.
Sorry. And I'm here for that. But it's the problem we've always had on our side, or at least going back as far as my memory goes, somewhere around the invention of the wheel, is
fire.
And believe me, back then, nobody thought it would take off. They didn't think it would work. But what's this fire thing? My daddy didn't have fire. Why do I need fire? Whatever.
I had to carry my fire uphill both ways.
Yeah, but we valued education. We valued being smart. We valued these things. I remember singing those Schoolhouse Rock songs with my friends in school.
Same here.
Because they were catchy and they were funny. And
Conjunction, junction. What's your function?
Absolutely.
I'm just a bill.
I didn't even realize until high school that they had hijacked my Saturday morning and fucking indoctrinated me with a bunch of knowledge that I wouldn't even be using until then.
Correct. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Oh yeah. They were brilliant at that. Oh wait, that was the government getting us. They knew how. But either way, it I can remember parents saying, please be smarter than me to their kids. And I can remember parents pushing their children to get as much education as they can. And I remember when trade schools were valued because it was still education. Right. Yes, I can break down Shakespeare, but I can't break down an engine.
Et tu, Brute.
So it's I need a guy who understands machines to make sure my frickin' car works.
That's right.
So I can go to my hoity-toity Shakespeare group meetings.
Correct. Right.
But either way, we're all in the same damn boat. And I think one of the things that one of the reasons why there's such a divide between us is that the right and the corporate overlords want us that way because, much like Dave said, two of my favorite words are French Revolution. And the moment that we, the rank and file, all figure out we're on the same damn side and we're all getting screwed evenly, they're toast. And that's why they're trying to keep us arguing, keep us fighting over dumb things like, oh, I don't know, racism. It's just dumb. Why the hell do we still have it? Why is it such a predominant thing in this society? You know, hating the LGBTQIA plus community. Why? Who cares? But it's just so that they can keep us all divided and angry and scared so they can cash in and go all the way to the bank. And that great divide gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it is inevitable it will collapse.
I agree.
It is inevitable.
Gentlemen, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate it. As all of you know who've been in my lives, we never know the direction it's going to take. I mean, we get a little bit of HVAC, and then we get sanity.
HVAC.
Yeah, he was here earlier.
He was
What that is, but sounds like fun.
You do. You know, well, it's probably better for you. I have to shower now after that experience, but I wanted to thank the three of you. I wanted to thank for the support in the chat. As a little shameless plug, Anthony is going to be gone for the next 3 nights, so I'm flying solo tomorrow night, like the old days. Would appreciate anybody to come on up and join us. We'll be back at 6 tomorrow night. There is merch available in my link tree. There's a couple of cool things that are on sale. And I can't thank everybody enough for the kindness and the support for this channel. It's really grown into something, and I like these conversations. Coming up, we have that targeted live on Wednesday evening for Republican women specifically. Also coming up, we're going to be doing a live. It's focusing on conflict resolution, just about what we just talked about. Have some experts in the field that'll be joining us. And also in the near future, probably the first week in April, we're going to be talking about using the data with a very well-respected, thank you, Rusty, professional on pew-pew violence. And we're going to have statistics around that with some...
Oh, you nailed that. You nailed that down with him?
We did, brother. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Yep. Excellent.
And so that's coming up. So our goal is to try to do at least one targeted segment weekly if we can. So I say that to you guys now for everyone who's listening, is that if there is a target or a topic that you would love for us to dig into, please message me. Please message Anthony. Please message the mods. You had a question, Rusty?
Well, I was about to say, should the clown come into the conflict resolution?
Probably not the best environment for him. We can have another conversation about that.
Shameless plug. Follow Uncle Rusty the Clown, please. I need to get my numbers up. But yeah, I think he'd be perfect for conflict resolution.
We'll talk offline. We'll have a live. I go Monday through Friday. We'll do the special live on Saturday with Uncle Rusty. Yeah, perfect. So again, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate everybody joining tonight, guys. Thanks again. Thank you, mods. They're the best mods on planet Earth. Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, Chris, guys. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me, and looking forward to it.
Peace.